I'm building a Dwarven Civilization in hardcore Minecraft, where I've finally survived for 1,000 days. And in that time, we've built a huge fortress that'll protect our entranceway, we've built factories, and transformed this valley into a bustling Dwarven city, which will eventually lead to an underground cavernous empire. But I have indeed done the stereotypical YouTuber thing and turned this into a cinematic movie for you to enjoy. So with that in mind, grab your pickaxe. I really do hope you enjoy the video. Before we create a new world, we set it to hardcore, double check that there's no seed and that all the game rules are pretty much bog standard so that nobody can accuse. Then we go ahead and give our world a name, and my friend gave me the perfect name for season 3. If you know, you know. But let's jump into the world. But we load in and we're going to go ahead and get started in this world. And you would think the first thing we're going to do is chop wood, but you would be wrong. You see, our new world is running a mod called WadZee, which does sadly mean that we are using a slightly different shader to our last series. That complementary is going to be updating for WadZee support very, very soon. And I just realized that I was on the edge of a block there. But we've gone ahead and found iron and wait a second. There's iron over there too. We may have just hit. I don't want to say it, guys, because I know that this is like the most cliche hardcore thing ever. But we may have just found the most perfect start in Minecraft hardcore in the history of any Dwarven kingdom. Oh my god, there's so much iron, dude. I didn't even see this bit. I was just seeing this bit over here. Oh, there's a spider over there, though. We don't want to aggro that guy before we get at least a manner of protecting ourselves. Let's very quickly make some sticks, and we'll make an pickaxe. There we are. Our first basic tools. We'll dig you up, and we'll try and kill this spider without dying, because this seed is perfect. So we're going to try and... Oh, there we are, and we got some string. Nice. So let's go ahead, get this iron mined and this coal mined, and jumpstart our hardcore world. And we've now managed to gain some very basic iron stuff and a shield, so that gives us a little bit of protection. But I really want to go on an adventure and check out this peak of... Wait. Did I just see? Oh, maybe not. Oh, for the content. There we are. Right, I'm going. I'm leaving. Okay, I'm not risking it. Oh my god, this is literally a Dwarven pod stream. I'm actually speechless, guys. Like 100% speechless. This is the most unintentional, greatest seed in the world. We've even got a pillager outpost over there. We've got the most... I have literal goosebumps. I didn't think I'd say that over a video game. This is insane. And it's also turning nighttime, so we're gonna need to make a very, very quick hideout. But so we're not wasting the night away, we can go ahead and smelt the raw iron that we picked up and start to craft a few more things, as we're still in need of a helmet. Make ourselves a sword. So as our first night in our hardcore world came and went, I decided to start planning what we were going to do for our series. It looks like the sun is just about to rise here on day 1 of our world, and I did go ahead and place down a sign that says night 1 was survived here. I think the big issue here is we're in such a dense tree line. I think the mobs are going to struggle to burn. We're going to have to make our way down the mountain and try and find ourselves some food. Oh, we found some watermelons. Oh, that's huge. That's actually huge. Let's dig up these watermelons and get them in our hunger bar. Oh, he just scared me. He just jump scared me so much. That was an actually... You guys saw that there. I'm going to slow-mo replay that. That was a genuine jump scare. But we're gonna head down and see if we can make ourselves a boat and head off on a little bit of an adventure here. Dig up our bench so we can take it with us, and there we are, setting off on our maiden voyage through our brand new world. The sun is dawning. We are feeling good about this seed. We are off to a cracking start. And not 2 seconds down the road, we've found our first sheep, which is amazing. We'll go ahead and pull them. And we grabbed a little bit of coal that we saw in the mountain there, but we're heading back to our boat. And then we're actually gonna... we'll burn through our melon slices first. I don't want to cook the meat just yet. I feel that's going to be useful later on for when we start establishing our base. And we've already got some sugarcane too. This is off to a I just can't stop saying it. We're just off to a really great start, guys. And we have a ruined portal too. This is incredible. What are we going to end up finding in the chest here? Some flint and steel, golden shovel, a lodestone. Nothing too great, but we'll take it anyway. And we just couldn't make it up. This literally couldn't be any more scripted if we tried, guys. We have a village right at the base of our mountain, which could potentially be our new Dwarven kingdom. I'm gonna go ahead and take you real quick. Bit of a bundle, some empty maps, nothing too fancy there. Whilst going through the village, we found our first copper in our world, so I'm actually gonna go ahead and mine this because I really do want to play around with copper golems a lot more in this series. I didn't really get the chance to in season 2. We'll go ahead as well and gather up some acacia wood and try and see if we can get ourselves an acacia sapling. And there we are. And we yet have another village just right down here, just over the hill from the other one. I have never heard that mob before. That actually scared me. Yeah, as I was saying, this seed really is shaping up to be one of the best seeds I've ever started a hardcore series on. And another village? Oh, we are hitting the W's right now. And I will say it's going to be rude not to actually dig these up and take the books with us, as they are always really handy to have early game. I think we'll also cook up a storm as well, whilst we wait for it to turn day. Hello! And the sun's just about coming up, so we're taking a quick sleep so we can stop phantoms from spawning. Head back into the big wide world once we've mined up this coal. And I'm only just realizing now that we haven't actually found a third village. I actually ended up walking back on myself because this is the part where we parked our boat and this is the ruined portals, so... But I think we'll actually head over in this direction now as we're trying to explore the region around the mountain. I'm also going to go ahead and kill these cows. We could do with probably keeping some of these to take back to our mountain, but for now, I think their food is way too valuable to not have in our inventory. And we've found an ocean just a little bit further along, and I'm curious to see if there's any monuments out nearby, because that would just be the creme de la creme of this world is having a monument nearby to get a guardian farm set up. And these photon shaders do make it quite hard to see underwater, but we did find a shipwreck, so we'll head into there because they normally have some pretty cool stuff. Just have a look in the chest. We got, ooh, lots of iron there, some gold. And we're just going to head out, get to our air bubble real quickly if the game's going to let us. And the second chest, we've got some carrots, which is fantastic. We've also got some wheat, which is good, and potatoes, which are all fantastic for getting our starter farm up and running and getting a villager breeder on the go. And we'll get back on the... I was going to say we'll get back on the road, we'll get back on the ocean and head back out into the world and do a little bit of exploration. And night is now dawning on the end of day 2, but I believe we should be alright in our boat. And whilst we're wandering around waiting for it to turn daytime in the ocean, I think now is a really good time to say, oh, I think we found a pale oak biome. But as I was saying, I think we should set some ground rules real quickly, and just letting you guys know that there is going to be no duping in this world. I will be using the nether roof for farms just for ease. And the only final rule that I really particularly have is to just enjoy myself and enjoy building the things that I want to build. And I think we can all be pretty much in agreement. It's not quite turning morning, but the rain is really starting to do my head in, and the visibility is really low in this shader, so I think we'll just sleep it away. Is that yeah, that's pale oak. Let's see if we can get ourselves a pale oak sapling, and we'll then hop back in our boat and begin to head back to our mountain. Get rid of that creeper. And 3 saplings should be more than enough, as the ambience is actually starting to freak me out a little bit, so I think we'll get back to our boat now. And I think this is a safe place to disembark. I do think it's also worth very quickly reminding everybody as well of one final rule, is that I don't skip the nights, really. I actually really prefer to have as much done as possible in the shortest amount of time. So that's why our last world was only 3,000 days, but 2 years played, just so we're all on the same set of ground rules heading into this. And nighttime is here, so we're going to create ourselves just a little temporary cubbyhole again, as we need to get our inventory organized. And yes, I ended up making another boat anyway, and I'm going to say it a million times, but this mountain is just perfect. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think the Season 2 world ending was meant to be. I think the Dwarven Lords and Overlookers and Dwarven Gods really wanted us to die in our Season 2 world because they really wanted to present us with an even better seed, and it just keeps going. This is literally what we were trying to build in Season 2, but it's just giving it to us naturally in Season 3. Guys, I think it was 100% meant to be. Just as we're doing a perimeter check around the back of the mountain, look what we've ran into. There is literally a village built into the mountain. We've found yet another smaller but seriously cool looking stony peak that I'm attempting to scale. And with the help of our trusty stone pickaxe, this should have got us relatively close to the peak of the mountain. Just look at this newfound kingdom and what we have to play with. The mountain continues all the way over here and down here. This is still technically part of the mountain all around here. And where it raises up, we have a actual legitimate sandbox of a place to build a Dwarven kingdom. I'm sorry. I will stop gloating over it. It's so good. And it just was so, like, randomized. Like, the chances of this happening was basically next to zero. But I think now that we've explored a lot of the area around the mountain, it's now time that we try and take a step back from things and figure out just exactly where we're going to build this new kingdom. And we have yet another village that's kind of encapsulated in a mountain area. And of course I'll say yes to some more iron whilst we're scaling down the mountain. Who wouldn't? Every dwarf loves a little bit of metal. I think we'll also make our first iron pickaxe as well. We don't really want to be using it too much, but it is going to be handy just to get us down this mountain. And I ended up getting distracted by a small cave area which had loads of iron and coal that it actually ended up turning nighttime, so we're going to have to end up making like a temporary base. I think we'll also go ahead and take a spruce sapling back with us, as spruce is probably going to be a big contributing factor to our future build. Oh no you don't. You sneaky little bugger, you. Llama. Ooh, llama. Please don't ever let me do that again. Please. And we've made a full circle now back to our first village that we looted. And I missed some melons, so I'm just going to grab these. And we've decided to scale back up the mountain that we first spawned on, just to grab a little bit more iron before we begin to settle down and find the area where we're going to build our starter base. I am going to break my own rule in episode number 1 though, and just sleep this night away, only because I'm getting super excited to try and scale this mountain, as I really just want to see what the view looks like from the top. I think we are going to have to swap out to leather boots. There ain't no amount of iron high enough. You know, I'm excited about a seed when I start pulling out the sing-song. I think it would be really sick if we could actually ride the goats, because that would just seem so much more fitting with the Dwarven theme. And if we go ahead and jump up here, this should be it. We have arrived at the peak of the mountain range, and this just looks absolutely incredible. This is going to look so much better when we've actually explored a lot more of the area out beyond, because WadZee is seriously one of the most insane mods I have ever used in this game, as the texture that it will, the distance that it will help render in at is 30,000 blocks. I could literally travel 30,000 blocks in one direction and still see this mountain range. That's how cool the mod is. And yes, I do see some incredible build opportunities just in here alone. We could do some epic Dwarven towers. I think we need to head back down and start to find an area where we can begin to build our first base in this world. I'm even undecided on whether or not I kind of want to build up another mountain range in between these two to kind of connect them together, or to just build like a diagonal, like epic bridge that kind of connects the two. Honestly, there's so much opportunity in this world. It's actually, I've said it before and I'm going to say it plenty of times, it's a little bit paralyzing. But as day 8 comes to a close, guys, I think we have our area of where we're going to start building our Dwarven kingdom. And I think I have the perfect storyline and lore that will help us jump into this. But as we did in Season 2, I'm going to go ahead and roll into a cinematic to show off just the beautiful mountain we have spawned on to build our kingdom. And as we jump into these stunning cinematic views of our new mountain range, I have to shout out Vortex543 for the recommendation to build Helms Deep, as this kickstarted a huge potential idea to chase in our newfound hardcore world Gimli, in the post of Lord of the Rings, takes on the glittering caves behind Helm's Deep and turns it into a bustling dwarven city, which not only gives us that touch of Lord of the Rings inspiration, but it also gives us a blank palette to work with. We can go ahead and build something completely from my imagination, and we can build up an own narrative and lore of our own with a tiny touch of Lord of the Rings added into the mix. So let's jump into getting some stuff built. Starting off with building some chests, as we need to organize everything. I think we'll use one chest for all of our ores, another chest for organics and food and greenery and such, although we need that spruce. Then for now we'll just use a miscellaneous chest for everything else. But as we've now organized everything and it's turned daytime, I'm going to use some of the iron to make a couple of axes, and we're going to head out and start felling some trees. And I'm going to go ahead and put that axe away just before I break it, as I'm trying to make a more conscious effort in this series to keep the nostalgic things. The first set of tools we made, the first stone, the first wood, first iron, first diamond, etc. Obviously, I did accidentally break my stone axe, sadly, but other than that, we're off to a great start doing that one. But we'll head back into our little dwarven cubby hole for the night, where we can go ahead and turn all of the birch that we're getting into charcoal, as we are indeed going to need a lot of it in order to actually expand our starter base. So daybreak, so we're going to jump in and continue to work at getting rid of all of the trees in the immediate area. And after a few hours of terraforming, we kind of have to wrap things up on doing what we were doing and change directions, as we've kind of burnt through a lot of tools right now, and that's a lot of iron use and it's not really efficient. So we're going to use the last of the iron that we've got to go and try and get some diamonds. And we do have a chute here that seemingly goes down to Deepslate, and I'm not filled with hope, as I can also see some skulk down there, so we can go ahead and get down to strip mining level. And on our travels, we've come across the lapis. We'll take some of that. Oh, we found our first diamonds in our world. Nice. We just need to get over this lava. That should give us diamonds. Nice. And we've got a few more diamonds, but I'm gonna leave mining diamonds there, as I don't really want to be wasting too much time without any fortune on our pickaxe. Then we can craft our first diamond pickaxe in our world, giving us access to be able to get obsidian, so we'll head down and grab some of that right now. So back up at our base, all we need to do is grab the books that we looted earlier and the diamonds, giving us our enchanting table. We should have enough books to go ahead and make 7 bookcases, which also gives us a huge kickstart in getting our enchanting system set up. But we are going to need to move on to getting some more systems in place so that we can actually farm some leather and some paper. So we need to go out and do a little bit of adventuring to find ourselves a cow, and we will have to move it eventually, but I'm going to go ahead and start a wheat farm, as we're going to need some for breeding the cow, and we even have some bone meal, so we can go ahead and really kickstart things off here. I also realized that we needed some fencing to keep cows in, and that should be a nice little pen for some little cows, and you still do just nicely. Yeah, there we are, we got them into the pen. All right, and once again, night rolls round, so we're just using this time to make a little enchanting space underneath our base. Ooh, fortune 1, but I think we can do better if we just level this up a little bit more. I almost forgot that we had a savannah village nearby which had plenty of wheat, so we don't have to worry about expanding the wheat farm. But I did have to expand our sugarcane farm, so we got to work doing that, as well as breeding of some mukus to try and get some experience. Then I finished off the rest of the night by finishing up our enchanting area, and after breeding the cows just that little bit more, we have now hit level 30, so I need to go ahead and kill some of them, as we need a little bit more leather, which means we can actually go ahead and finish off the enchanting area for now. Even though that block doesn't technically work, it just kind of, you know, finishes the whole thing off, and we already have 15, which should give us, yes, the max enchant, and fortune 3 is excellent. So let's get that on our pickaxe straight away. And ooh, efficiency 4, not a bad start. Really not sure where this guy came from in the middle of the day, but hey ho, he's doing a little bit of work for us. So I'm going to go mining for a little bit longer, where I actually learned of a technique in the Twitch stream the other day, where apparently on Y-58, if you actually crawl mine, it can be way more efficient as you are near the bottom of the world, so you'll expose the most amount of blocks without exposing bedrock. Whether or not it is the best, we'll give it a try for a half an hour or so and see how we get on. And I suppose I'd also take this opportunity as well to just mention that we are streaming a lot more on Twitch than we are multi-streaming to YouTube at the moment, so you can always head over to the Twitch. It's the same handle over there, and you can check out our live streams. We always have a lot of fun, and I am running a completely separate world over on the Twitch streams occasionally, where we're building a cool fantasy castle, so you definitely want to go and check that out. Woo! We finally came across some diamonds after just 15 minutes, so that's got us a bunch more, which is gonna be 8 in total. Wow. And not 2 blocks later, a few more. I am loving this. That's 21 diamonds in total. This Fortune 3 is definitely coming in handy. But back from our mining trip, we did end up getting a bunch of redstone, which will come in handy for building some farms early on. And we ended up getting 26 diamonds, which is really good, because given the 3 that we've got, we can actually go ahead now and create our first set of diamond armor. We are looking good. One thing I did forget to look at whilst I was down there is what enchant we were going to get on the shovel. Oh, efficiency. That's actually, that's peak. Let's go and get ourselves a few more levels so we can do that. And with my newfound diamond armor, I am feeling way more confident to just head out in the night and instead of just waiting inside all the time. And there's level 30, which should give us the efficiency and unbreaking 3, which is even more incredible. And grabbing a little bit of lapis, I think we should go ahead and just get a little bit of protection on our armor. And we got aqua affinity and unbreaking 1 on our helmet. I think we'll make a diamond sword as well. I just feel it's going to give us a little bit more protection, so that can now go in our sort of history. But before we start making some major progress in transforming our world, I'm going to go ahead and make a bunch of lecterns, as coupled with the one we got earlier is going to give us the start of some villager trading, which is going to help us level up even faster and start to get our gear looking that little bit more secure for the long term. Now I think it's time to jump into our first official proper time lapse and transform this area ready for our starter base. I then interrupted the time-lapse as I realized a wandering trader spawned, and he had a piece of moss, which is huge because it means that we don't have to go adventuring to find this, as it is something that we're going to be using quite heavily in our Dwarven builds. I think I'm also going to make another diamond pickaxe since we do have a few spares now. I also did a little bit of farming again so we could breed some cows, as it'll get us a little bit more experience. I took a little bit of a break to go and build an iron farm so we could replenish some of the iron tools that we were losing in clearing the area. I also decided at this point that we were burning through our pickaxe like mad, so we were going to need to start focusing on getting mending in our hardcore world, so I decided to also take some villagers back before we continued mining. Well, apparently turning my simulation distance up didn't really do much to help the iron farm, but we just need to use the jumping trick to hopefully get over this mountain. Never actually... Oh, it looks like it could scale anything. Okay, we're off to a great start here. This seems to be going smoothly. A little bit too smoothly. Yeah, I knew it was going a little bit too smoothly. I managed to lose one of the leads, so now I only have one lead to get both boats back. But then the other issue is it's now turning nighttime, so I really need to try and hurry up and get these both back so that they don't get killed by a zombie. I'm just going to build a shelter around them for the night. Just like that, they are protected, and just in time, because it looks like we've now got the undead coming to try and take them away from us. And it does give us a pretty good excuse to go ahead and get a potato farm started, but I will be honest, we are going to be moving these farms very soon, so we probably could have chose a better place to do it, but it's fine. And after a quick morning power nap, we can head out the doors and go and get Bill and Ben to the base. And with them both back safely, I did accidentally lock this cartographer in, but that's fine because he can be Our paper trade guy giving us some XP, especially when we get some mending, which will be good. Now, the question is, can we go ahead and recycle this guy? And not 2 seconds later, we ended up with mending. The only problem is we don't actually have any emeralds to lock this guy in. So we'll see if we can trade some paper up, in which we luckily actually did end up having some emeralds from when we were trading with this guy before. And this should give us our first mending book. And this guy is locked in. But the sun is setting, so we need to go ahead and build ourselves just a real quick pen just to make sure that these are safe through the night. So we'll terraform the platform out a little bit. Then we'll go ahead and build a basic wall with some cobble deep slit, dark oak fence gate, and we'll center that right there. We'll put a wall on either side, and with a little bit of a roof on there, that doesn't look too bad. It's not supposed to be anything fancy. It's just a little something just to house the villagers. But we are going to need some beds, because we're going to need to release these guys and hopefully breed them. And hopping back over to the village, I've found the house where we put all the beds. We'll leave one for the villager that's randomly wandering around here. I'm sure I've just seen him like walk around this area, but I feel bad if we take his bed, so we'll leave him and hopefully he'll live a long and prosperous life. But we're not quite finished with the side quest, but we have hit level 30, which is a good start. Because after the fact that we haven't had the best of luck, I did realize that we have Unbreaking 3, so I'm hoping we get another... Oh my god, that is insane. That is actually incredible. Definitely the best time to go ahead and get Fortune. So, other than efficiency, we're kind of pretty much there on our pickaxe. And with our newfound tools, I jumped into a time-lapse to finish it off. This was something that I anticipated may only take me a day or two worth of gameplay in real-life terms, but actually ended up taking me over a week to complete. It was an insane amount of time. You forget just how slow tools are when you don't have full efficiency and beacons in your world. This is definitely not Season 2 level speeds. But I added in a bit of a grass variant so that it wasn't a completely flat area, cleared out some trees, and it gave us a great canvas to start our build. Whoa, that wraps up that session, and that was way more painful than I care to admit. As you can tell, we actually lost our villagers really early on in mining out this area, so we've basically had to live off repairing our tools and using up spare ones by just breeding cows. So this has taken me a lot longer than I care to admit, but we'll move on as we now need to get this covered in grass, and then we need to start our first actual build in our hardcore world. Before we do hop into this build, I think it's a good idea to just very quickly go and grab some villagers. I very quickly managed to kidnap 2 villagers right out the back of a house, so fingers crossed we can just pull these into the river. Question is, can I get them onto the land? Oh, and we can. This is perfect. We are definitely going to be on the road to getting these villagers back to our base. I think it could have been worth bringing more than 2 villagers back, but I suppose we'll just have to be extra careful this time. We can then go ahead and place that down there, and that should give us the ability to then knock them out of the boat. And I didn't really want to do it, as I quite like the look of it, but I think for now we're going to go ahead and cover up the windows. The pillager actually ended up coming down, standing on here and shooting at them. So at least this way we can avoid that again, and now we can hopefully keep these guys going for a longer period. I almost forgot as well that we do actually have a bunch of food here that I'm going to go ahead and take and throw at these guys so that they can start breeding and get some baby villagers in here. So jumping into the build, we're going to go ahead and start the outer wall of our Dwarven Fortress area. So we need to go and build a wall. We're not too worried about the texture that we're using right at this moment in time, as we are going to be covering the bottom section with a bit of a rocky outcrop further down the line. I've also found the center of the outer circle, which is going to help us kind of position everything else within the fortress later down the line. We can then go ahead and build a base layer of cobblestone. This isn't really needed to be textured as much, as a lot of it is going to be covered over with a bit of stone and rocks. And it's also just to help save on a bit of resources as well, as I do think we're probably going to need more stone than we've actually gathered to get even just this outer wall built. This whole project is going to need a lot of stone. And that's looking like a pretty solid start. I like how I did actually add a little bit of variance to the level of the grass earlier. And now we need to go ahead and blend this into some different types of stone and some stone brick for the uppermost part, which is not going to be as eroded by the stone underneath. So I think in order to do that, we need to head into our base, where we do have a bunch of stone that we've been smelting whilst doing all the other work. And I think also we can go ahead and get a little bit more cobblestone into these smelters so that we can actually go ahead and carry on generating stone whilst we're using it up on building up the wall. And just a little thought before we actually go ahead and do that. I think I am going to actually go ahead and smelt a bunch of stone brick into some cracked stone brick, because I think blending from cobble into a majority crack stone is going to help with the transition into the smooth stone, and it kind of shows a more aged look towards the bottom of the tower, and we'll have to do a little bit of blending as well in order to make this look realistic. But once we've got this smelted, we'll jump into a time lapse and we'll go ahead and get the outer wall complete. Well, I've gone ahead and finished up the outer wall and the inside wall. We'll just head over here to take a quick look. Just getting a little bit more height. It's looking pretty good. Once we get the details in, and we are going to be putting a gate in here, so we are going to have to strip this back even more eventually. Probably might try and see if we get enough time at the end of the episode to pull this back a few more blocks. And this is looking pretty damn good. I definitely think the texturing's pretty on point, so I'm happy with this. So let's head back inside, as I think it's about time we moved out of our little cubby hole and into something bigger. So we're going to transform this rock, which I left deliberately when terraforming the area, into the inner sanctuary part of this fort. Just going to deal with those fools real quickly. We've had a real issue with them spawning all the time around here, so we're going to have to be a little bit careful when we work with villagers to make sure that they are protected. You'll notice as well the inside wall is all just stone brick. I kind of, just made it a bit easier on myself to use the same texture on the inside. So we're going to go ahead and build one central block here. Go 2, 3, and then obviously going to have a little bit of mining to do, but that's great because we do actually need a bunch more cobblestone, as we've used up almost all of our stone reserves just on this outer wall alone. I think I've also decided as well to kind of use the terrain around here to our advantage, where we can kind of have like a little bit of a hidden passage out of the basement area of this down into the undersection. I'm also once again temporarily expanding the potato farm, as I have now got a farmer as the villagers have finally bred, and I want to be able to trade so that we can repair our pickaxe, because we're going to need a lot more cobblestone. I'm also heading down into our mine to go ahead and expand it and try and get some cobblestone for the next segment of our build. Actually, heading back into my cubbyhole, I've had a bit of an idea. If I grab all the iron that we currently have, I think we go ahead and make ourselves kind of like an auto smelting setup, but we've only got enough iron to do 2 furnaces, so I'm going to go ahead and put the fuel in the back. Then we can run in and put the cobblestone in the top, and then we can get all of the stone, in which I had another one of my amazing brainwaves. I thought a better idea would be to head back over to the area that we mentioned earlier about mining out, and we just start mining out the stone, and then we can even start going down a level, as we do want this to slope down eventually, and this kind of tackles 2 birds, 1 stone, I think the saying goes. Thought I'd very quickly interject in the time-lapse. As you can see in the top left corner, I have just hit day 100 survived in my Season 3 hardcore world. We then need to start on building the top section of this fort. And our furnaces are a little bit slow, so I've come to try and see if we can get some iron to build some more hoppers to expand it. And I suppose whilst we wait for that to smelt, we'll carry on the floor again. Oh, we finally got mended again. You have no idea how long it's taken me to get back to this point. Oh, we're going to lock this in right away and buy a couple of mending books because our gear is looking a little bit worse for wear right now. And this is why I've been saving up a bunch of emeralds for a short while so we can go ahead and buy as many mending books as we can afford. Only getting 4, it's a little bit rough, but we'll get a bunch. We'll see if we can try and get one more, actually. I'm also just going to go ahead and mark out the area for the inner wall of the top section. And that's not looking too bad, actually. I really like the thickness. And we've also gone ahead and built the stairway into what's going to be the dwarven entrance into the mountain. We will have to do a little bit of terraforming. Went to go mine some more cobble so we could get it smelting, but I heard a witch. And if you know, you know. I am not playing anywhere near witches right now. So whilst we wait for day, I'm going to jump into some menial tasks. And I have realized I haven't actually spoken about this floor, but I actually really came to like doing a bit of a checkered pattern. I just thought a furnace and polished andesite was just a nice looking basic floor to use in our first starter home. Well, it's nice to see Billy still thriving. I've come over to the nearby village as I'm going to need some iron. But as I mentioned earlier, we do have a slight problem in that this really isn't operating whilst we're like over the other side of this cliff. Despite that I do have my simulation distance turned all the way up, it just doesn't seem to be operating that far away. So I'm actually going to break my own rule and just AFK one night to try and get a little bit of a backlog of iron. Fingers crossed we have, ooh, a stack and 12. That's going to be more than enough for what we need. So we'll head back. Oh. It just looks so incredible from back here, and it's only going to get better. Going to take a very quick pit stop just to go ahead and purchase our last mending book, and we can craft an anvil. Let's go ahead and see if we can place the mending enchant on all of our gear. And now with our gear and sword having mending, I'm going to jump into transforming the front of this dwarven fort by tearing back this land a few more chunks and beginning to build up the details and some towers on the front. So I'll jump into a time lapse and see you on the other side. Waking up on day 141, it actually ended up taking me my entire Saturday just to dig out that one area and build the tiny bit on the side of the castle, simply because I was stubborn and refused to extend our villager trading capabilities, which I did end up doing by adding in these stick trades, which came in clutch and managed to help me speed up the progress, since I actually have a bunch of trees, as you can see, that actually need chopping down. So I thought we'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone again by trading in sticks, and it would help repair our tools. But still, I often forget just how slow things are when you're trying to mine and make big projects early game in Minecraft without a beacon and without full efficiency. But I'm moving on, as I need to go ahead and plan the wall, which is going to connect the 2 valleys together and provide a sort of more open area that's defendable by the newfound dwarven colony. I am incorporating the same wall from Helms Deep simply because it was probably one of my favorite films as a kid. So I feel like I need to kind of include this as a nod to the 2 greatest scenes in cinema, where Legolas kind of skates down the stairs and where Gimli, the most mightiest dwarf, sacrifices himself for his friends by throwing him into a big group of Urukai. Begin marking out where I want to place our wall, as Helm's Deep has a wall which kind of runs from one side of the valley to the other, and I really like the idea of incorporating it, as it was probably one of my favorite movies. And whilst the nighttime visibility is terrible, I'm just going to go ahead and fell some trees. I do want to take this opportunity to say as well that when Complementary Shaders introduces Voxy support, I will be jumping back to complementary, so I won't share my shader settings in this video simply because there's probably no need to. I now need to jump in and begin making the outer shell of the wall, which is going to be about 15 blocks high And I want to keep a 2-block gap. And it does kind of abruptly stop here, but we will be doing a little bit of terraforming on this at some point. But we'll continue and begin to build up the front and back section so we can see just roughly where the wall's going to go. Then we can finish off the front side. And there's the foundations done. I think I'm going to add in a tower on this side of the wall so that we can connect this up to the top of the wall. But other than that, I think this is pretty much ready to go. I think I want to add a little bit of dwarvenness to it, so I'm going to take some of the pillar designs that I did in Season 2 and shove them on the front of this wall and see how it looks. Oh, yeah, I like that. That's looking sick. And I think because of the way this wall is designed, what I might start doing is put one here. Then instead of trying to put one on like here, so it kind of hides it and it'll look a bit off and diagonal, I think what I might do is actually put one on every end like that. Yeah, I thought I'd give it a go, and before I've even got up there, I know that this just isn't going to work. And a little bit of tweaking later, and I've added in kind of like an upside down stair, and I think I might actually do that around the top of the castle as well. It kind of just adds this like separation and just adds a little bit of detail. But we need to go ahead now, jump in and get all of the rest of the pillars done in the fastest time possible. So let's jump into a time lapse. Oh my god, that looks incredible. I'm so glad that I went round and put in this little notch around the top. It just adds a little bit more life to the whole build. I am so pleased with this. But there's... oh, I have missed out a block. We'll fix that real quickly. And I do think we need to add a little bit more life in here. And it just so happens that I actually have a plan. Because if we head into this chest, I have a bunch of moss blocks that I bought from a wandering trader. Then we went and used some bone meal to duplicate it just in case. So we'll go ahead and farm some more in the stony area that we need to dig out. And this will give us everything that we need for the next section. And with some moss, I want to add some life to these walls. And I think the way we're going to do that is we're going to actually dig up some of the wall blocks, place down some of the moss blocks like so. But you'll notice that it kind of just looks a little bit out of place. So what I've actually done is made a few different kinds of mossy blocks, which is going to allow us to blend the moss into the brick a little bit better. So anywhere where the moss is touching the brick, we'll place down some mossy cobble like so. And then in the odd places, we'll also then go and place down some mossy stone brick. And that just helps blend all of the greenery into the wall. And then we will add just the odd like little bit of mossy brick down here and just continue to basically texture each section all the way along the wall. I then just need to quickly add a bit of a walkway on top, just using stone and a little bit of andesite, nothing too special. I'm also going ahead and adding some details to the wall, just to make it look a little bit more lived in. Quick run down to our mine, so we can make a bunch of deep slate slabs, so we can finish off placing them between each of the little... these things, I don't know what you actually call those things, I just know that you sort of battlement pointy bits? I don't know. I'm now moving on to building the lobby area. I'm not doing too much with this area right now. All we need to do is just add a bit of a varied texture floor. Then when we get to this sort of curve, we need to start doing slabs so that we can create a sort of stairway up to the top of this inner battlement. That's the pathway wrapped up. I'm pretty happy with it. We definitely need to sort of fill this area in time. So if you've got any ideas, leave them in the comments down below. But I'm definitely going to come back to this area, and I will be back in 2 seconds just to finish off this doorway. But another thing that I wanted to point out that I really liked is this kind of little doorway into our main base area here. This is going to be our starter base where we're going to basically survive for the first 1,000 days whilst we progress through the game. I'm now finishing off the battlements on the top by basically just doing a 2-block high wall and leaving a 1-block gap. Finishing off with some slabs. And that doesn't look too bad. I think we need to sort... I think I know what this needs, actually. I ended up getting a bit distracted to a point of where I actually forgot what I was originally coming over here to do and ended up digging out some dirt. But then I remembered that it was to look at what I did, and I added some cobblestone walls as like some supports. And the texture variance kind of helps it. I think I just need to rework that whole section, but we'll leave it for now. Then we'll use all the dirt we gathered to go ahead and continue the slope, as this is going to be a gradual decline the further we get away from the actual fortress. So that the long-term goal for this is when you actually stood like 100 to 200 blocks in that direction, we just see this grand fortress just spanning across the mountain range. So I've headed down into the mines to grab a little bit more tuff, as I feel like I didn't quite have enough in the chest. But with a quick trip back up to the surface, we are going to grab some moss. Using deep slate tuff and moss, I then threw in some boulders and rocks at the base of the fortress. I've gone ahead and brought some slabs out as well so that we can increase the gradient of these rocks, as I thought they just looked a little bit too sharp. I think we'll also mix in a little bit of gravel as well, just to add a little bit of life at the base of the boulders. Oh yeah, that's way better. It doesn't look as kind of like blocky and as junky as it did before, and the gravel really does add sort of a little bit of a sort of like a rusticness to the base as well, so it looks like little bits of sort of fallen off. And at this point I'm just rambling, so let's move on, as it's time to start building the entranceway to our new Dwarven kingdom. But first I need to plug this hole, and I thought a good way of doing this would be to add another kind of boulder, so that it kind of ties the whole fort into the landscape a little bit more. I have hopped down to come and harvest some potatoes to repair my shovel, and I will just say that this build has a lot of unfinished dark areas that I haven't quite looked at in this episode. So I just want to say one last time that if you want to come and watch me live on Twitch, the link is in the description, or it's twitch.tv/itmemickeyt. And I'd love to have you guys come and join me on Tuesday from 2 PM. But with some finishing touches, these rocks don't look too bad. They definitely need some tweaking, but I'm really excited to finally do what I came up here for, which is finally build the archway, which signifies the entrance to our new Dwarven kingdom. So let's head into a time lapse and see what we can muster up. My idea with this entranceway is to not overcomplicate it too much, but I do want to make it seem like a grand Dwarven hall. I feel like the overall fort kind of does a good job at selling the scale of this thing, and I don't think I need to overcompensate with the entranceway. Have you ever started a section of your project and realized that you're actually wanting to make it much bigger than you actually can currently manage? Yeah, that's currently me right now, as this actually needs to be tied into the entire mountain range, which means we're going to need a lot more stone. So much so that we're not going to be able to do it in this episode, but it gives us a very good starting idea of where we're going to place our entrance. So you'll have to tune in to episode number 2 to find out just how we decorate our first entrance hall. I have just remembered that we do need to just finish up the floor in our starter base, otherwise that would really infuriate me that we finish this episode without wrapping that up. There we are, that's our starter base done. We obviously need to clear out this, and I was tempted to leave it in and to try and tie it into the world somehow, or into the build in some capacity, but I think it's actually just going to look a lot better once it's completely removed. But for now, I am going to leave it there, guys. I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody that supported me in Season 2, and I know that many of you wanted to see me continue that world, but let's be honest, whatever higher Dwarven powers we believe in, I feel it was definitely destined to take us onto this scene. But with episode 1 now wrapped, I could reveal the world to the world, and now finally get on with building an entranceway into our newfound kingdom, where I decided to do this as a stream project. As early on, I made the executive decision that I would really like you guys to enjoy the videos and not know what it is that's going to be revealed in said video. And then when you tune into the live streams over on Twitch, you know that you are getting a completely unique experience, a build which you aren't going to see in the videos. So that gives you all the more reason to head over to the Twitch link in the description. Although it's not on the initial plan, we are going to be digging this into the mountain and connecting it up with the Dwarven Kingdom. I'm not looking forward to the time when we have to tear down those mountains, and I think we might have to create a connection point from our entranceway into our new city, because scaling the mountains every single time is a bit of a nightmare. But this is where we're going to build our first city, so let's get down there and I'll explain exactly what's going to go on. As you see, mining out a large area under a mountain is quite difficult very early game when you don't have a beacon or netherite tools. So I want to go ahead and use this as the starting area for our Dwarven Kingdom. Although saying that, actually, it's starting to turn nighttime, so I thought I'd best run around and use up the torches that we've got. Then I jumped into clearing out some of the mountainside so that I could build the base of our trading hall, and I decided to go for a decagon shape. It's a little bit of a weird and wonderful shape, but I really wanted to try and test the limits of my building skill with this project, in which I was constantly reminded of the fact that we need this trading hall desperately, as I had to head over and repair my tools several times during this dig out, where the only actual way we have of repairing our tools right now is digging down trees and then trading sticks for emeralds with Fletchers. And with the ground floor now dug out and complete, I need to go ahead and connect our Dwarven fortress to the new area that we're building in, just for ease of access. And once again, as we jump into building a passageway between the new kingdom and our fortress, this has once again reminded me why this seed is so completely insane, because we've ran into so much coal and iron. But digging through here should bring us out in the new area, which is fantastic. But I think it goes without saying that this place is going to need some serious terraforming before we can start to call it home. Like, damn, seriously. I wasn't kidding. But just to avoid any nasty surprises, I've made a bunch of torches so we can light up the passageway through the mountain. Popping into our base, I'm going to go ahead and begin to start smelting all of this cobble that we've mined out. I'm also going to go ahead and grab some blocks to take with us that we're going to use in the building process. And collecting the iron from our furnace, we are now starting to get a very good amount of iron build up, which is going to be useful for future farms. And I'm going to try and make my way across this waterfall real quickly to get some dripstone. Hopefully we don't end up falling all the way down, because that would be that wouldn't be very good, but that should give us the dripstone that we need. Yep, we got 7. See you later, Steve. And we're going to need some paper, so let's get a sugarcane farm set up nearer to our newfound library area. Yeah, potatoes could be good, because then we can get a villager breeder set up. And after gathering a little bit of wood, we can make some boats, as I feel like it's probably worthwhile taking some villagers with us right now. And I skipped over recording a lot of that, but honestly, you guys have no idea just how difficult that actually was to get these guys in the boats. But now that we've got them in, we can begin to get them out whilst the others are sleeping, and hopefully it won't give us too much trouble in trying to get these out. But this might take me a while. We finally got there. Now just need to quickly place down all the blocks again. Oh boy, I was worried for a second there. It's a good job we left a little slope area behind the fort, otherwise this would have been a lot more difficult. Oh, I also probably should have slept before doing this to make this a little bit easier, but it's for the content. Oh, hold on! We've even got a little Roger with us as well. Oh god, oh god. We may have caused an issue. Don't die! Wait, why are you still dying? No, one of them perished! No, they both perished! Oh, this is not good. Oh, this is not good. Okay, note to self, powdered snow, not good for villagers. Honestly, the saddest part of that whole journey was losing Roger. May he long rest in peace. And this time it might take a little bit longer, but we're gonna try taking them the safer route. Also, I feel like I knew that wouldn't fit, but I was kind of just being a little bit hopeful, but it looks like we're gonna have to take them the dreaded overpass route. And I know my life is pretty Lord of the Rings coded anyway, but I feel like this is the point where somebody needs to tell me that we should probably take the Gap of Rohan or even go through the Mines of Moria. And we managed to get them all the way into here without any further problems, and that's pretty much it for getting our villagers here. And for now, we'll also go ahead and build a little cobblestone house around them, just so no zombies or anything can transform them, because I really don't want to go through that process again. Now, we are pretty much ready to jump into building this, but there's just a couple more farms that I need to go ahead and get set up, and we will move these in the future, but it's just temporary. So we'll start with a bit of a dripstone farm, and directly underneath it, we can create an infinite water source here too. Now, there is one more item which we need to go and gather a block for, but it does mean heading out on a bit of an adventure, which I definitely won't say no to. And I've got to say, I absolutely love this fortress build, because this Helms Deep inspired fortress entranceway into our Dwarven kingdom is going to look even better once we get the ramp done, and it looks super cool in the morning sun. And it wasn't as far as I remembered, as our base is just over the hill there, but we have now got access to some sand for the first time in our world. And I'll definitely have a bit of a Minecraft boomer moment here, but I'm pretty sure this is the mysterious gravel, which is like the archaeology stuff, and I've never actually touched this stuff in Minecraft before, so we'll have to make note of this coordinates and potentially come back here at a later date. I'm sorry to stop and just glare again, but it just looks so good with the mountain in the background, and it's gonna look even better when we extend the stony peaks out and build on top of it to go all the way to build height. It's just gonna look super sick. Speaking of future projects, I just want to go ahead as well and just ask politely if you wouldn't mind considering hitting that subscribe button, as it really helps out the channel, especially if you want to tune in to watch this world unfold over the next couple of years. Assuming we survive that long, that is. There's a high possibility that we may not, but still, you should join us on the journey. And back in the start of our Dwarven city, I'm going to go ahead and build a furnace, as this is going to allow me to start crafting some of this sand into glass, where we can go ahead and get ourselves a glass bottle, which is going to give us access to creating mud up here, or we can store it away for now, as we don't quite need it just yet, as we need to go and get some deep slate. So we're going to have to establish a little bit of a mine up here, and I think down here is the perfect place to go and do this. As in the long run of this city area, I'm going to do clusters of sort of ore veins and gems, and I think this looks like a perfect little carve out giant vein of some kind that the dwarves have mined up to use as building blocks. But we do need to go ahead and just clear out all of the snow first, where I want to give it some decoration, and I probably should have just done the offhand method for this, but we need to go ahead and strip some spruce plank so we can go ahead and craft ourselves. Oh, we actually got more spruce shelves than I realized. I thought it was 1 per 6 logs for some reason. Even better. Now, we're not going to worry about the snow, as we'll probably take care of that and terraform this whole area eventually, but we're going to build a support beam here, give it some structure by adding some wooden stairs at the bottom, and give it a little bit of a more ornate dwarven look with the shelves. Repeat it over here too. We will also get some mossy cobblestone mixed in here, but we'll throw in some cobblestone just to kind of add a little bit of texture and kind of make it look like all of the rubble has been just brushed to the side. I want to go ahead and try and help accentuate the archway as well, so we'll go and throw in some trapdoors and some shelves to kind of help add a little bit of a roundedness to it. And we'll cap the top bit off with cobblestone. We'll also go ahead and copy what we did on our wall in our fortress and just add a little bit of some life outside with some barrels and some slabs. And there we are. We've still got to terraform the area around it and kind of get rid of the snow, but that looks like a perfect little vein mine that the dwarves would have started when they moved into the city to gather resources for their buildings. So I'm pretty much in love with this right now. And it is getting a little bit cozy down here, but I do think hiding a actual practical mine is a pretty good idea in this build. So we'll throw down a little bit more trapdoors to add some decoration around the slabs. Put down some fence gates and a fence for support, where we can also go ahead and hang a lantern off it. And luckily we don't hit our head. I think I'm also going to widen this side a little bit, just because it was starting to feel a little bit cramped. And I know 100% that I'm going to regret deciding to do this, but we need to now dig down to the deep slate level. But I don't want to waste too much time, so we found some water. That could be good to kind of do a bit of a dive in, see if there's any ores at some point. But for now, I think we'll just light this place up and we'll leave it as it is, as I don't want to get too distracted. I also added in these kind of wooden support beams at the very start, just to add a little bit of life as we're walking around at the top. But it was a pretty straightforward build, except one element. Boy. But luckily no wardens of mass destruction were activated this time, and we carried on building the mine down to deep slate so we could gather up some deep slate for our build. And we are about to jump into building here right now, but I did realize that we actually need to go ahead and put some water down above the dripstone. There we are. It doesn't have to be amazing. We'll probably change it up in the future anyway, but that works. But finally turning our attention back to our build, I do want to explain very quickly that I am going to be building some biomes within our newfound Dwarven cave system. And within those biomes, what I want to really focus on is making the buildings feel like it's part of the environment. I really want to experiment with making it blend in with the surrounding kind of design of the biome that it's in, and make it feel like the dwarves have utilized the landscape into building. So getting started on the library build, we can go ahead and start swapping out the cobblestone for cobble deep slate. But as I'm trying to make the ground floor of this library build kind of feel like it was built and carved into the natural terrain, we need to go ahead and create a bit of a gradient into the normal stone brick that the dwarves would have used to build with. And I think to do that, we use a little bit of cobble deep slate on the base, and then we maybe go around and put in some deep slate kind of above where the cobble deep slate would be. So then when you kind of step back, with the light on it, you kind of get this slight different lighter shade. And then I think we'll also kind of like throw like a little bit of tuff kind of in with a cobblestone as well, just so it helps that kind of blend together. If we take a look at this from a little bit further back, that's kind of looking good. Remember, this doesn't have to be a like totally gradual kind of thing. It just has to look as if it's part of the terrain, as we are going to be building a lot of like rocks and sort of details on the outside of this, which will cover up some of this deep slate anyway. It's just to kind of make the build feel like it's in sort of tune with its surroundings, which the dwarves were very good at. Hopping into a time lapse, I got round to finishing up all of the wall for the base ground layer. I then wanted to add a little bit of depth to the build, so I added in a little bit of a slab indent of a roof to kind of make it separate where the natural foundation of the base was versus the section that the dwarfs built on top. And of course, no dwarven build would come without its excessive amount of stone and dirt that needs clearing. And to finish off the rest of the building, I kept it pretty simple. I ended up just using stone and stone brick to kind of add just a little bit of variation so it didn't look too flat. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with this build so far. It just needs a lot of detailing done and a little bit more added to it so that it just doesn't look like a flat cylinder, but we'll get to that. I had to head back to my base to repair my tools, and I thought I'd use all the XP stored in the furnaces to actually repair all the tools. Can actually go ahead and point out a little bit of progress that we made in our live stream recently. This is going to be our sort of entrance hallway behind our entranceway of the Dwarven Fortress into the Dwarven Kingdom. Not quite sure what this is going to look like yet, but the VOD will be in the description over on my second channel, which I've now released for you guys to catch up on any of the Twitch VODs that I upload over there, and second videos that I feel like making that don't quite fit the theme of the main channel. But for the real reason why we came over here, which was to grab some acacia logs. Big on, Jeffrey. I'm back at our library. I'm going to need some deep slate, which we've got a little bit, but we may need a little bit more. But we'll try and use what we've got right now to see if we have enough to finish the roof. Where my personal rule for roofs is to keep them quite flat. However, I did feel this project needed a little bit of an exception, as I wanted to give it that grand library feel, so I decided to experiment by adding a little bit of a dome in the center of the roof, and this is going to tie in with the build, which you'll see a little bit later on in the video. Oh, we're out of glass, so we're going to have to go and gather a little bit more. I am a dwarf and I'm smelting some glass. Smelty, smelty glass. But back to our library. I was not going to be auditioning for the voice anytime soon, but I can also say that my butt cheeks were clenched so hard during this, as I was so paranoid about falling to my death. And that's the glass dome done. I just want to go ahead and add some sort of wooden supports in the roof, just to add a little bit of splash of colour, a little bit like that. I'll go ahead and repeat it in some different areas and we'll see what it looks like. Yeah, that's starting to look pretty good. Once we get some windows in and some other basic details, especially around the base on the outside, this will really start pulling together. But we now need to go ahead and work on the interior, and we also need to build a villager breeder whilst we're at it. With these two wonderful villagers that are just chilling out in there. You're doing good? You're doing good? Yep. Okie dokie. So I'll grab some shears and then we can head off on a bit of an adventure again to go and find some sheep. Which we did actually manage to bring a sheep back during the live stream, but I don't know whether or not this is going to be... there we are. We'll take a piece of wheat with us as well, because then we can bring another sheep back and we'll just get a little bit of a sheep farm going on, which seems like it's probably going to be useful right about now. It didn't take us too long to find another one. Can we get this guy back to our base? And yes, I know I should have bought a lead, but here we are. Doing it the old-fashioned way. Yeah, it was pretty uneventful. Managed to get them back, and I've also bred him, so we now have a little baby sheep. And I also killed off some of the cows, but we move on. As we now had the beds, we could go ahead and make the villager breeder. Then jumped into doing another live stream, and I wanted to take this opportunity to just kindly ask if you enjoy watching live streams, if you would consider maybe going to the Twitch link in the description, dropping me a follow, and tuning in. We have a great, wholesome community, and we love hanging out and having a laugh and just spreading some smiles, and I'm really trying to hit Twitch partner as one of my creator bucket list things, so if you'd like to help me in that journey, you know where to go. I will also add that transparency is a huge thing for me as a content creator, so I actually did end up going back to that whole trial area with the suspicious gravel, and we had a whale of a time stressing out the community over on the live stream. Okay, enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump back to the library, as we needed to get the floor done so we could begin the interior. And for the floor, I decided to go for this kind of like pixelated, kind of ornate look to make the library feel that little bit more grand. And with the floor done, we can move on to the decorations. So in order to do the walls and to help build it up, we need all of the spruce in the area, so we'll quickly chop it all down. We're back inside. I think we're going to go ahead and build some spruce structural supports around the room, because I really do want to mix in a little bit of wood, as we have to remember this Dwarven Kingdom is pretty new and they're still building their foundations, so it's not going to be as ancient as, say, Moria was in our previous season. But I'm pretty happy with this start. Kept it a little bit minimal, but I need to now go ahead and get some villagers in here and start turning this into an active trading area, as we need a way to get all of these villagers into trading all of the basic enchants we need for our gear. And I think what we're going to do is have some head lore masters on the ground floor. This is not going to be organized. It's going to be like papers all over the place. Speaking of paper, I needed to come back to our old base, because we've got a bunch of leather that we can take, and sugarcane that we've occasionally been harvesting, where we can craft it all into book. And it's a good job we planted some spruce saplings near our library, so we can go ahead and gather some wood. So heading back inside, we can now start working on creating each section for the traders, as we're going to create a lore master section for each of the main trades, where my idea here isn't to be too strategic on where everything is placed. I want to kind of create a sense of unorganization, just to kind of add a little bit of variation and life, as normally I like to make them look like prisons, whereas this time I want to see if I can just make it just look a little bit sporadic, like they're still researching, they're still trying to gather all their information from all of the dwarves that are settling here and sending it up to the above. And given this is all about repair and refinement, I'm going to throw down a couple of crafting benches with some different details around them. I'm also using acacia trapdoors on some of the bookcases to make it seem as if some of them contain secret information and are kind of hidden behind a bit of a locked cell. Might be clutching at straws with that one, but I like the idea of it. I think I'm also just going to add a little bit of a dip down area. It's not really going to add much to the build, but I just think it just adds a little bit more depth to the floor. And so we're going to go ahead and get some villagers in now, and I do want to stress that we're not exactly going to be creating the sort of free look straight away. as I kind of need honey blocks to stop the villagers from being able to jump out of their little sections. So for now, we are going to keep them in the minecart, but it's not going to stop us from doing it in the future. And I think the second one can go maybe here, like this. So we'll lay the track to get villager 1 into place. Right, I've now got the 2 villagers in for the mending and the unbreaking, which we'll get round to doing shortly. Next up, we've got the weaponsmith area. So once again, we'll throw down a few more bookcases, and then we'll go and place down some anvils. I think we'll also go ahead and create like a sort of a mini table here with some slabs in between. Then with some invisible item frames, I think it's going to be quite cool to kind of just add some weapons down into the frames like this. And once again, we've just got to get 4 villagers into here. Now we're moving on to the next segment, which I'm actually going to go ahead and split into 2 because we need to do the fortune enchant. But I think the fortune enchant in terms of the lore will belong to a lore master that is just absolutely obsessed with stashing everything for himself. So he's going to be the type of guy or the type of dwarf that's going to want just one whole area to himself to do his research in peace and private. And I think he's going to be the type of person that's just going to store and kind of show all of his wealth to kind of show off to all the other dwarves. I think I'm also just going to scatter some ingots around just to kind of make it look as if he's like sort of dropped his wealth everywhere. And then for the second segment, I think we will have our efficiency and our silk touch in here. And I think the way that we're going to do this is we're going to put some item frames down, and then we can go and throw in some tools on the table like that. So this is the forging and mining lore master section done. We could probably do with a few more barrels and things, but we're kind of running a little bit low on wood. Then we're going to move on to the armor smith lore master, where we're going to use a little bit of copper just to add a little bit more variance of color. And copper just is that kind of cool dwarven-y color anyway, so it really works. And this is it pretty much done. I think this area we're kind of going to turn into a general storage area, as we'll probably want to just keep all of the stuff in here for now. So we'll add some barrels and bookcases around. But I have also just realized that this back section here where we did the toolsmith guys actually needs relocating over to here, because we actually need to build a staircase in here which goes up the actual library, because as of right now we don't really have a way to kind of get up the other level, but it shouldn't be any problem to just relocate everybody. Villager number 1 getting moved over. Yeah, villager number 2, numero number 3, and that's villager number 4 in place. So they're all located now, and they're being a bit funky about taking the jobs, but that's not an issue, as we'll be going around and kind of locking all of these in a little bit later on anyway. And we've now opened up an area which we can build a staircase up to the next level. I almost did forget, I wanted to make some grindstones to kind of make a fence that is blocking this kind of center bit off, as I haven't actually got around to discussing this yet, but we will. And to make the material stretch a little bit further, I've actually decided I'm going to leave a 1 block gap between each one, which might not look the best, but we're really starting to struggle and get a little bit short on resources. Then that'll be the barrier finish around the top. It's not the most perfect one, but it'll do. And that's everything knocked out. So now we have a barrier which kind of centers off the middle section, and it just adds a little something else. I do think we actually need to go ahead and just add this guy in there, because it looks a bit weird without one on the end. But other than that, this is looking pretty damn good, and I'm pretty happy with the way this has turned out. As for the generic traders, where we can trade paper for emeralds above the ground floor, I'm not going to put too much thought into the process of building up these layers. We just need something simple that's just going to be easily repeatable and stackable, so that we can move on and just finish this build. I did try and finish this day off by trying to cycle trades to try and lock in the right trades with each villager, but this is when I realised this is going to take much longer than I ever anticipated. But with the floors done, all that's left to do is get villagers in and do a sort of basic design on the other floors above and finish off getting these wooden pillars in. But we can leave that for now, as we're actually needing to head out as I want to focus my attention on this center podium, in which we're going to need a little bit more tuff. In the rain, what a wonderful feeling. Seriously, I'm not kidding. It's rained every single day since the beginning of January in England. But no rain's going to dampen these spirits, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding in a texture to the floor, where this is going to be the sort of darkest section to kind of add a little bit of depth. And I do think we'll probably turn this into a fade effect in the future, but for now, we're kind of working with the only materials we've got. And with a few variation of blocks, including some coal blocks, we've managed to give it a nice dark texture. It's probably overkill for the size that it is, but I wanted to do it, so we did it. Next up, to try and blend the floor of this library into the overall landscape, I'm going to go ahead and begin trying to texture and add some shading to blend this into the darker rocks. So we'll go ahead and start off with a little bit of tuff as it matches the tough bricks. Then this can blend into some deep slate. Then we can mine out the remainder of the stone and fill the rest in with some cobbled deep slate, as it's a slightly darker shade than the standard deep slate, like so. And that's pretty much it. Actually, I did feel like we could use some tough bricks kind of coming down over the edge. Kind of if the sort of started to build down, but it just kind of got a little bit more weathered. I think the gradient between the tough and the deep slate might be a little bit too harsh, so I might need to find another block to kind of put between there, but it'll do for now. As for the deep slate tiled floor sections, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do this, so I felt like we should just keep it simple and go from the tile to just standard deep slate, and then pretty early on just go into cobbled deep slate, as it'll keep it simplified and it'll speed this up just a little bit, as it will be something that we can come back and visit again in the future. Adding a few little tiles in also helped at the bottom, blended in with a darker color. So this is pretty much it. I think maybe one or two more tiles over here, and we'll finish the rest off in a time lapse. But I wanted to take this opportunity to just explain that in the center of this library is a giant gem, probably the biggest in all of the realm, as we are building the glittering caves. And to give meaning to that name, I want to throw gems and ore veins all over this new dwarven kingdom. To build this library gem, I think I'm going to go with a purple colour, as it kind of matches amethyst, and given that amethyst is a natural occurring gem in Minecraft, it just makes sense to do that. But in order to actually get purple glass to make this gem, we need to go on a bit of a mission to find some red flowers, which hasn't been too difficult right off the start. And this time my brain actually brained, and I remembered that we do actually have an iron farm which doesn't function 100%, which should give us all of the red poppies that we need. So we can now head back to our base, where we can go ahead and craft some blue dye and craft some red dye, and that's going to give us the purple dye that we need. Also, eagle-eyed viewers might realize that my pickaxe has been fully repaired. I thought I'd just mention that all of our furnaces are backed up, so I thought I'd gather some of the XP and repair my pickaxe whilst I'm here. We're also going to need a little bit of wool whilst we're over here. We didn't quite get enough, so we're going to just hang around for a second. Never mind, I realized we needed carpets and not the actual wool blocks, so we did indeed get enough. But jumping back to our library, we'll grab the glass out that we made a little bit earlier, grab 9 purple carpets, and then we'll actually go ahead and make some purple stained glass. Then placing down the carpets on top of the torches, we can actually go ahead and begin to craft our first gem in our world. And I will say the amount of times that I've had to run and grab like the odd little resource here and there, kind of off camera, not thinking about, you know, interrupting the flow of the video by transitioning away, jumping backwards and forwards, is an incredibly high amount. But yes, we had to go grab some more sand for some glass, as I want to experiment adding the odd block around the gem to kind of insinuate highlights on the gem, like the light bouncing off it. So I think if we put one maybe down here, then it kind of, from a distance, should... I don't think it works there. I think it works better when it's hidden behind the gem, but I suppose you're kind of going to be moving around it constantly, so it gives that effect of the glint. As I also want to go and add some glass panes everywhere to kind of give a sense of some sort of sharper edges, and then we'll kind of bring it more to a point at the top. Maybe do this just to kind of bring it together. And for a first attempt, I'm going to say that's pretty good. I think I might get rid of the white blocks. I'm not quite sure. You'll have to let me know what you guys think in the comments. But I need to jump on to the next part of the build. And that's the stairs done. I went for this kind of zigzaggy pattern because I wanted to try and give it that kind of diamond shape to kind of accentuate the gem in the middle, and I also thought it would be a minimal design that would allow us to at least store some more villagers behind the stairway if we needed the extra ones, but it works as a way to get up and down, and it's not going to take, you know, too much resources to build it out if we ever want to do that in the future. And to finish off the interior of the build, we do need to just grab some spruce logs so we can continue to build up the wooden beams that are supporting each of the floors. I am interrupting myself real quickly because I've just noticed something that's really throwing me off. If you look at these pillars here at the front, we've got one basically on the third block along, touching the wooden outline here. But if we go over to this one, yeah, this beam's over by one pole. Motherfucker! But despite the errors, we have kind of pretty much finished that. We have got a little bit more to do on the roof side, but we can do that a little bit later, as I'm not being lazy. We've literally ran out of spruce. I'm going to go ahead and leave the interior as it is for now, as I'd like to focus on decorating the outside of the building a little bit more and terraforming the area around it. But before we do that, as always, we need to go gather some resources. So, Chaz, some deep slit. Doesn't also hurt to grab some tuff as well. Then back up at the surface, I'm going to craft some cobbled deep slate walls, as I felt like we needed to add a bit of variation of texture into the outside of the building, and I think I'm also going to add some windows as well real quickly, where we'll place down some polished tuff stairs, deep slate walls to add in some depth to the windows, throw in a couple of more polished stairs. Gonna craft some iron bars, as I am worried about mobs spawning and getting in and zombifying the villagers too early. Plus, iron bars just look cool in dwarven builds, in my opinion. No! I have no idea where that zombie spawned or came from. Luckily, he did damage this guy a little bit. I saw him in my peripheral, but he didn't manage to convert him. Whew. Don't worry. I am the guardian of the lawkeepers. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty cool name. Back to building the windows. I've also been putting in this one block window as well, just as I felt like it needed one on the side. Plus, it gives us the ability to kind of look out on this direction. Yeah, standing back without shaders after I've finished all the windows, I don't know about the iron bars. I might swap them out for the grids, the copper grids that we used in the doorway in the windows, and that'll obviously contrast nicely with the stone, and it'll look a little bit fancier and less like a prison. And yes, I am aware that one of the floors is only 4 blocks high instead of 5 blocks, but it's a little bit late now to be fixing that. Now for the terraforming segment, I'm actually clearing out some powdered snow real quickly, as I'm going to have to terraform this for a future project, but for now I'm going to go ahead and use some of the bones that were farmed recently to just duplicate some of the moss. I'm now very quickly going around and filling in the pathway down from the library, as the idea is to have a little bit of a pathway that kind of comes down here and then follows it round where it'll connect up to this dwarven house here, And then there'll also be like a main kind of dwarven roadway, which kind of goes down here and into a future cave system over here. But I'm going to jump into a time lapse now so we can finish this off and hopefully tie the whole build together. Now that's not looking too bad all in all. It's a great start to our city area, and I definitely think the pathway needs changing. I'll probably switch it up from dirt. I really wanted to incorporate more earthy tones into this future dwarven city, as I have in the past done a lot of grey. But sadly, somehow a zombie got in whilst I was doing the work outside. Not really sure where he's spawning from or where he's coming from. It could be from upstairs somewhere. But he wiped out every single villager, which, you know, is unfortunate. But luckily, we didn't have any of them locked in yet, so it's not really the biggest deal. All we have to do now is just get some villagers back in to the slots, and that should only take us a couple of minutes. Right, that's the last guy back in, and yeah, I didn't record it, but I actually almost just lost my hardcore world whilst doing that, because I had 3 baby zombies, one with an iron shovel, attacking me, and I ended up getting cornered. I'm actually flustered, and it happened like 10 minutes ago. It's crazy. But we can go ahead and try and lock these guys in and buy some books as quickly as possible. And now with the ability to get enchants and to trade sugarcane, we can check back into the progress we were making on stream of building our dwarven entranceway, and progress was indeed flying. But I realized that in order to use the trading hall we had just built, we were going to need a sugarcane farm. We're starting this week's episode off strong as we've begun to lock in a lot of the trades that we actually need. We've got Aqua Affinity on this guy, we managed to get Feather Falling 4, Respiration 3, and we even managed to get Silk Touch, which is huge. We've still got a lot of enchants to lock in, but it's a pretty good start. But that's not what we're focusing on this week, because we've got a build to get on with. So I am going to be in and out of there as I'm trying to lock in all of the trades over the course of the week, but for now we need to figure out exactly where we're going to build our first farm in our hardcore world, as we need a little bit of a sugarcane farm so we can actually start trading. I think this area is going to be perfect to build our first farm, because it's going to be quite tall, and then we can actually sink it quite far down into the mountain if we need to, and take it down to the base layer of our library. Because if I show you guys something that I did in episode 1, which you might have missed, which is this little area here, which I actually built a little stairway down, and this could connect up to the base of our sugarcane farm. Oh, I really love your guys' suggestions about actually swapping out the glass, the white glass highlights for magenta, so it's a slightly lighter color and should blend with it a little bit better. I'm definitely going to be giving that a go at some point in this episode as well, as long as I don't forget, which I'm prone to doing, by the way. Alright, I'll get to work already. We need to go and get some acacia wood. And doesn't that mountain range just look incredible? And I've got to say that I actually really wanted to tear down this mountain range here, but few people are seemingly against the idea, and the more I look at it, the more I'm actually inclined to agree. As some of you guys pointed out, dwarves are quite secretive. They'll tend to have entrances that are kind of hidden and not very obvious, and I actually feel like I want to play that into the deliberate design. This kind of mountain range kind of hides it away, and I don't know, there's something about it that is kind of like, it's almost like our little secret, as to people that are in the kingdom would only know it was there, or if you were kind of instructed to get round the mountain. But then we decided to head back, and I took a bit of a major detour as I came across some frogs, which I decided to capture in a boat for future frog-light farms. Came across some bizarre generation, but also ran into one of the most stunning sunsets this shader pack has ever presented, and it just took me aback. I had to stop and just stare at it for a minute, but let's get back as we've got a lot of work to get on with. Hopping down to our deep rock mine to gather up some more deep slate and some tuff for the build. And once again, for transparency reasons, we've got a bunch of diamonds down here that we haven't mined just yet, because I wanted to save them for when we need them, so that people didn't just assume that these diamonds just appeared out of nowhere. But back up top, I'm going to go ahead and start blasting the iron that we mined, because we're going to need a lot of it for this farm, and and we'll go ahead and store all of the stone and stuff that we've mined as well. On the topic of storing, I think we're going to actually chop down some of this spruce, as I want to make a chest up top for the materials. And whilst we wait for the trees to just break, I do want to say that I absolutely love this sort of landscaping we did in episode 1, and I definitely think this is a direction we're going to go with the whole Dwarven Kingdom. I want to try and keep the colours sort of browns and lights and sort of a little bit muted. So we'll place down a temporary workstation that we will get rid of at the end of the build, but we're going to have to make a few chests here. So heading back down, we're going to grab all of the tuff that we've just mined, as well as the deep slate. And I definitely remembered that I put all the bone meal that I needed for this in my old base. So let's head back over there and grab it. Yeah, I thought I had left it there. Anyway, now back at our library area, we're going to need to grab a little bit of moss, as we need to do a bit of moss farming. And to do that, all we're going to do is just place down a moss block on this stone, which we are clearing for a future project. Then all we need to do is just use some of the bone meal on it, and then we can just go ahead and use the hoe to dig it up. Okay, we clear the snow, then we do it. Now we can go ahead and get it all up. Actually, I don't want to accidentally break this hoe, so that is an original one, so I'm going to put that in there for now. And we're going to go ahead and make a new one. Then we can put all the acacia logs that we gathered and all of the sugarcane for the first farm, which if you haven't clicked on just yet, it is a sugarcane farm. Need to top up the furnaces again, and I'm going to use this opportunity to gather the iron to maybe give a little bit of repair on our axe, because it's looking a little bit worse for wear at the moment. And I still don't know if the long term, if I'm going to put a roof over this and turn it into a giant cave, or if I'm actually just going to keep it open topped and then build a cave further down into the ground. But speaking of our long term plans, if you want to watch this world develop over the long term, please consider hitting that subscribe button, as it really helps me out and it just shows me that you guys really want this series to continue. But moving on, we need to get this build started, so let's go ahead and get this little peak chopped down. I don't really want to get into the habit of getting rid of too much of the landscape, but I think we are going to need to just get rid of this little tiny peak just to get our building done. Then I've got to go ahead and mark out where we want the build to go. Now, I do also want to interject, as I keep checking the villagers and resetting the trades every night for those that aren't locked in. And this guy has Unbreaking 3, which is one of the ones we haven't got yet. But he should be over there. So I'm going to actually lock this guy in and move him over, and hope that moving him doesn't screw up his connection as long as we reset him over there. So let's get these two swapped over real quickly. Push him over there. And I appreciate that locking these guys into specific locations isn't really going to impact the world massively, especially since we're going to have a trading hall right above us. But let's just put it down to me just trying to be a stickler for the law. I'm going to go ahead and build a base layer of deep stone brick. As it's going to add a bit of depth and shading to the build, and it's going to make it pop and stand out against the stone backdrop. But we've kind of run out, so we need to go and get some more cobbled deep slate. But sadly, to repair our pickaxe before we do that, I am stuck with our old method of having to go and chop down a bunch of trees where they can get traded in for emeralds. I have also got to start utilizing bundles a little bit more as well. I have totally not used these enough. So then head back into our mine over at our newfound city. As I return to the surface, I just had a moment where I completely zoned out and forgot I had even built this. It might be a bit of a simple build, and it's definitely not the biggest or the most detailed, but it just looks cool. And once this whole city area is filled, it's gonna look even better. In which we jumped right back into building up the walls, where I added in a deep slate to tough to stone gradient. This is to make it feel like it's built and carved into the surrounding areas, because we're going to be using those colors to add some rocky outcrops later on in the video. And when I finally finish this, I wasn't quite sure how I felt. I've also changed my mind about the shape of this, so I'm jumping back in to do a little bit of changing up. So I want to give this a little bit of an hourglass shape instead of just a square building. So we're going to go around very, very quickly and bring it in a few levels. You might not understand it right now, but this is definitely another one of those trust the process situations. Finishing off the build by adding a roof. Right, okay. Let's focus back up for a second. We've got a lot of stuff to get on with this build. As first off, I want to go ahead and add some sort of pillar section like we did on our walls outside of our Dwarven fortress. I think I'll add some more deep slate brick as shadows. And I felt like extending these supports above the sort of diagonal bit would add a little bit more depth to the build. Oh, and that looks pretty banging. We just need to repeat it on all four sides. But I also do feel, I wish there was a shade of brick that was kind of between stone and kind of andesite shading, but not but I do wish that there was a stone brick shade that was kind of between deep slate and stone, as tough bricks do look good, but they've got too much of a green twinge to them, especially in shader packs. So it's the only thing that would have helped sort of make the pillars sort of stand out a little bit. I might go along and add some cracked stone brick to the edges just to add a little bit of shading, but other than that, there's not really that much I can do. I'm then going to add some cobbled walls to the corners, as we also did this on our library, so it helps the build it helps the build style remain a little bit more consistent. I'm then copying what we did at the bottom and doing it at the top, so that it's also got a valid reason as to why it's supporting up such a heavy top section, and added in a little bit more deep slate again for that extra shadow depth. I then jumped into planning the pathway that would lead away from the building and down to the main area, and I also went ahead and added in a carved out staircase that kind of zigzags up the side of the cliff. Moving on, I tried to design a pattern that would make the tower look a little bit more menacing, but it didn't quite work out, so I swapped the design on the sides for two bridges, which will eventually connect up to its surroundings. And I don't really want to show you guys because it's probably going to annoy some people, but as you can tell, it's a little bit off kilter, simply because when I was doing the floor design, I didn't actually make sure it was square. And it's probably going to take me too long to redo at this moment, but don't worry, we will come back to it, I promise. We'll do it again in the future, and we'll kind of make the amendments when we upgrade the farm and such. But for now, we'll move on. Add in some slabs in the corners to extend it up and add a little bit of a highlight. We can then move into grabbing some iron that we've been smelting from what we've mined. Actually, we almost left without grabbing some redstone as well, because that's kind of important. Got to gather a lot of logs as well, because we need to go ahead and create a temporary water source, as we're going to go ahead and make a very basic sugarcane farm, which we will make a little bit more complex in the future once we've been to the Nether, but as we're taking things a little bit slower right now, we just need to do things the easy way and at least get this farm started. Although, upon reflection, I don't think this design is actually going to work very well. So I got rid of it and decided to start again, except this time we made it one block wider, which is way more efficient, and I just took my time in trying to figure this out. And if we teleport a few blocks away, this is looking really strong as a starting building for our sugarcane farm. I'm really happy with this direction, so we're going to give it a little bit of a test and just kind of focus on terraforming the outside for a little bit, where we can let this run and see just how much we're going to get from, let's say, about an hour of it operating. So first up, we need to get all of these storage things inside of the building, as we need to build here. Chest number 2 is in. Last but not least, we just need to get rid of the crafting bench, and that should be everything transported inside. Starting off, I'm going to go ahead and fill this with cobblestone just so we have a strong foundation. And over the last few days, I've actually had a further development on how I actually want to do the pathways and what palette I would like to use in this world. But for now, as we don't have access to the Nether, I'm going to continue with our shoveled dirt pathway just to kind of mark out where the paths are going to go. So it makes building the paths later on down the line that little bit easier, and it also stops snow settling for the time being. But with that done, I have the hard task now of trying to blend our biome into the natural stone cliff face. As I have referenced this already, but I think it's worth just reminding ourselves and everybody else that we are indeed creating a custom biome look for this dwarven area. A lot of tough blocks, a lot of sort of acacia blocks, and the whole point is to make the base of the buildings feel like it's carved and built out of the natural terrain so that it connects them to the environment and feels a little bit more dwarven. So trying to blend that into a stone texture is going to be a little bit tricky to make it look natural, but we'll give it a try. So back inside our sort of farm, we'll grab some of the blocks that we're going to use. We're going to get some acacia logs. We're also going to need some moss. We're going to need our tough blocks, but in this case we're going to jump straight from our pathway into some cobblestone to help sort of give it that sort of variant in shade. We'll also leave the odd stone brick in as well, as it does kind of help add a little bit more grey to it, and then we'll start blending this into some mossy cobblestone, which is going to help transition this into the kind of mossy outcrop area. I've decided I'm going to add in some acacia wood instead of doing it a little bit further off. That gives it kind of a little bit of a brownness at the bottom and a little bit more of a rocky feel. I've also decided I am actually going to go ahead and throw just a few tough slabs in just to reduce the gradient a little bit right at the edge and to give it a little bit more as if like little bits of rocks have kind of like fallen down and settled at the base, but we don't want to overdo it, so that's looking pretty damn good so far. Now it's time to create the actual mossy crop area. This is pretty much just where moss is kind of growing on top of all these giant boulders and rock formations to add a little bit of moisture and life to our build. And after a quick sleep, I think we're going to use some sugarcane to kind of emphasize why the farm is built up here. I think in certain areas, because of the atmosphere of the actual sort of location, sugarcane only seems to grow in this one area, so the dwarves capitalized on it and built a farm out of it as a way to generate paper near the library so that they can continue with their efforts to maintain the law of their ancestors. But in order to do that, we need to go around and place down some water blocks, then place down a slab, and I don't want to make it look too cramped as I don't want it to look a little bit fake, so we need to just go ahead and add a bunch of these kind of all over. But in order to do this, we need to dig down these peaks just a little bit and expand the moss out, which the fun part about this is we can kind of cheat a little bit by just using bone meal to kind of cover the whole area, making our life just a little bit easier. The base of the edges of these boulders and rocky outcrops does have deep slate, which we did avoid on the pathway area, but since this isn't connected to the path, and to make the building feel a part of the environment, we are blending it into some deep slate just for the added effect, and then that's kind of blended into some tough blocks, which is also blended into cobby mossel stone. No, the quick sleep. And I just so happened to come in and walk straight into a creeper, which did no damage to us, but annoyingly did a little bit of damage to our farm. So let's repair that up real quickly. And that's that done. And back outside, we can go ahead and use some cobblestone stairs to kind of help the gradient a little bit and just to add a little bit of depth. And with 2 layers after an hour, we got 3 stacks, which isn't really that great. So I am heading inside to trade what we've got and all the extras that we had lying around, but I do want to stress that this is only supposed to be a starter farm and not a permanent solution to our problem, as we will be expanding our farm in the future, so I wouldn't worry too much. I think we'll also go ahead and make a little bit of progress buying the books towards our next set of armor, as a pretty big goal of mine for this episode at least is to have all of our helmet, chest, legs and boots with all of the possible enchants that we'd need to make our end game set of armor so we can finally go to the Nether. But moving on, I have noticed there's a lot of iron in this mountain cliff face, so we're gonna go and try and grab it all real quick, as I wasn't gonna carry on working on the farm in this episode and I was just gonna work on terraforming from here on out, but I do feel like we need to at least double the amount of layers that we've got to make this worthwhile. And I didn't even get it all, but just this section of the mountain and a little bit over here netted me almost 5 stacks of iron ingots, which is absolutely fantastic. So we'll get these in some furnaces, and that should be all of the iron ingots, which should give us enough. I don't think we'll need any more than that, but we'll find out in a second as we head back down into our mine for some good old redstone. And as I did say earlier on, I did keep all of the diamonds unmined for transparency, but now I think is a good time more than any to repair our pickaxe and begin collecting them for the next set of our armor. Back up top, I think we could probably get away with trying to do it now, but I think we'll save the endgame armor for the end of the episode. I think it'll just tie everything together nicely, so we'll go ahead and store it in its respective slots. So that goes in there, that goes in there, so that will be the priority to finish off by the end. Then we jump back into gathering resources. We had to get a bunch of wood for chests for hoppers, so we jumped over to our mini sort of makeshift tree farm. Then we continued to get some cobblestone for some more pistons. So we head back over, as we're going to need about a stack and 10 pistons or so in order to do 2 layers of the farm. We'll also go ahead and begin converting some of the dirt blocks into mud. It's becoming very apparent to me very quickly that we do indeed need an iron farm in our world, so we're probably going to have to focus on getting one of them made in the near future. I then spent the afternoon trying to blend the biome around the build so it made it look like it was part of the world a little bit more. I even added in these little crystals as well, alongside finishing off the stairway down, which I've fallen in love with these kind of like zigzag stairways that just look so cool, as well as building a bunch of bridges and just doing some finishing touches. And I feel like it's been a bit of a heckin' minute on the video since we came back to our fortress, but I've come to grab a couple of copper, which I believe we have in here. We do indeed. Get it all smelted, craft a bunch of copper bars where I can place them inside of the windows at the top of the farm. I'm also putting down some lanterns next to it to make some light emit out of them, as we don't have access to copper bulbs just yet. I also want to offer a huge shout out to you guys that recommended I swap out the iron bars in the library for the copper bars as well, because I think that would be a nice touch of colour to the build, rather than just going for these sort of greys all the time. And I've had to turn my shaders off as it's nighttime. I just want to give a huge thanks to the person that reminded me that copper bars exist, because that looks way better. And even with shaders on, the bars on the sugarcane farm look even cooler. They kind of look like evil eyes though. Which I'm not the biggest fan of, but we'll keep that design for now. And I tell you what, if I wasn't so deprived in this world, I would build a giant glass ceiling to stop this goddamn snow. You guys have not seen the probably hours at this point that I've spent clearing off the snow off the things. There's a reason why I don't have a lot of plants and torches and stuff down, is because I keep just running along and placing water down so that it washes away all of the snow that keeps laying. I've got to ask, do you guys like all the mining we've done off camera? I'm kidding, we haven't done it off camera. It's all been done over on the Twitch stream. The link will be in the description if you want to go and drop it a follow, as we are trying to hit partner. And I wouldn't worry too much. I am planning on bringing the VODs from Twitch over to my second channel in a couple of days when I stop making excuses, as well as introducing multi-streaming back into the mix and streaming back over on this channel as well, so don't worry. But with a shameless self-plug out the way, I did actually come over here for a reason, and it's because as we were mining out the entrance, we did actually gain a bunch of iron, so that's going to be pretty handy for the next project that I quickly want to throw together in this world. Now, back at our farming area, we need to build some very, very quick things, such as we need some trapdoors, alongside the reason why we bought the iron, which is to make a bunch of hoppers, then crafting a few extra buckets. Simply head down into our mine and grab a bucket of lava. As we head across this bridge, I'm gonna go ahead and build a iron farm. This is just an entry level one, a very, very quick one that I found on YouTube that's going to be hidden by a little dwarven hut. And let's jump into a time lapse and get this done. Then I'm going to finish off again with some sugarcane so that it kind of blends in with the other side of the sugarcane farm. And again, ties in with the law that higher up we've got this special reed that the dwarves are kind of turning into paper. I've also grabbed some spruce logs as I want to go ahead and continue to create that sort of mine look into the cliffside. But it's now complete and it's looking pretty good. It's a bit of a basic entrance, but it doesn't have to be anything special. But I really like the way that we've kind of gone ahead and textured this area. I did get a bit lazy over this side, I'm not going to lie, but I kind of ran out of time to work on this. So we'll definitely be doing this in a future episode. But for now, I just wanted to go ahead and showcase that all of the iron will be filtered down into here, which gives us room to expand the storage below the farm. And then we can also mine through to the other side and continue this dwarven walkway if we need to. But there's just one more thing we need to do. If we head into the farm, we just need to very quickly knock out this cobble block there. And this now should instantly start the iron golem farm. Okay. So, yeah. Hi, Harold. I will 100% have to come back through and blend these slabs in with the blocks underneath so that it doesn't look like it stands out like a sore thumb. But as I've got to get this video done and dusted today, I'm kind of just rushing this right now. I've literally just sat and also watched one spawn on the windowsill and fall out as well, so that's gonna need sorting. Although I have come up with a pretty ingenious method of figuring out spawn points with the snow, as anywhere the snow lays, I'm just running around and placing down buttons to essentially prevent it from laying, which also tells me where the dude can spawn. Apparently, I forgot to spawn-proof the crafting bench, so I've just had to do that really quickly. Last on the list, we need to grab some of the sugarcane. As much as I'm going to want to repair my tools in doing this, we need to trade all of the paper for emeralds to get as much XP as possible. As it's now a time that we make our endgame armor, and I'm not really sure if I'm doing this in the most efficient way possible, but I do know that if we head over to here, and we combine this with, I believe, Respiration 3. It should cost 6 levels. Then we combine the Protection 4 and Mending book. Then we go that book with the helmet. That gives us our first endgame piece of armor. The only problem now is we've run out of level. We finally had our starter trading hall, our starter sugarcane farm, and now we needed to actually turn our attention to building a nether portal, as we are approaching day 400 and we still hadn't been to the nether at this point. So in the next project we did exactly that, except rather than just leaving a big ugly nether portal in the world, I began the process of trying to make it blend in and make it feel a part of our newfound Dwarven Civilization. Place down our nether portal, as it is an aspect of this game that I have been putting off just a little bit because I'm just a little bit scared. But in the true spirit of the dwarves, we need to tackle this head on and get on with it, as we need to unlock what the nether has to offer. Now, I didn't want to put it too close to our sort of upper section of this dwarven city that we've started over here, just because I couldn't quite figure out how I really wanted to tie the nether portal into the lore, because it just didn't really seem like a particularly very dwarven things. But as I'm trying to stop overthinking everything that I do in this world, we're going to just go ahead and place it down and see what the placement is like up here, and then we'll do all of the terraforming afterwards. There's no point overthinking it now, just to place down the portal and find out that the spawn inside of the Nether is dreadful and we want to go and move it. So let's just place this down real quickly. Crafting a flint and steel, we can go ahead and light it, and there we are. There's the first Nether portal in our world. And can I just say, going to the Nether on day 400 is a pretty long time away. But like I said, I've been a little bit of a chicken. Very quickly go ahead and get the base around the portal sorted, because we don't want any sort of gas blowing us up and dropping us in here. And we also, oh, well, that was handy. Right through the portal. This seed just seems to continuously give great rewards. So we'll go ahead and pick that up and get in ourselves our first ever little dried gap. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is. And we already see another one over there. Wouldn't be very pro of me to leave some soul sand behind either, as we can make some elevators with that, which is pretty handy straight off the bat. And sadly, this is probably going to repair my pickaxe before it'll start giving me experience, but we'll take the nether quartz either way, as it's still going to be pretty handy for us to get some observers made. Haha, don't mess with me, you little punk. Let's head back through the portal for a second, just to sort of gather our thoughts up and figure out a game plan. I think I'm also going to take this opportunity to make another pickaxe. I could probably just work on repairing the one I've got, but I like to make things difficult for myself. It's also a little bit to do with the fact that we are going to need plenty of pickaxes in the future anyway, so every one we make now is just saving us time down the line. But not before unlocking some observers, which we can store away for now, but we'll be coming back to them very shortly. I would also probably be quite wise just to make another shield as a stand-in, just in case we break the one that we've got. Actually, I also feel like it'd probably be a pretty smart move to go and grab some wood right next to our portal and craft a couple of boats. Now that we're in the Nether, I am going to make a couple of doors on this place, just to give us a little bit of a way in and out without having to dig up and place down blocks continuously. Just building a little corridor off to the side so that we can create a mine shaft. And this should be, yep, Y15, which gives us the layer for ancient debris, so we can go ahead and make a very quick tunnel. I am also getting a little bit sidetracked, trying to do a little bit of mining, just to see if we can get our first ancient debris. And not 2 seconds later, we literally ran into our first two pieces, which is always nice. But it's nice to say that we finally got Hidden in the Depths achievement, so let's get back to what we were doing. Which I'd probably be quite wise to just note down the coordinates of where our portal is, but given that it's pretty much near 0, I don't really have much to worry about. Ended up having a little wander off to the north of the portal a little bit, and I ran into some more quartz. Maybe don't stand on top of the quartz before you mine it, Mike. That would probably be a death sentence in this world. Which, if you watch the one block episode, you'll know exactly what happened. I'm going to grab a little bit of basalt as well, as this is one of the blocks that we are actually kind of looking to farm. I think I'm going to head out to the east a little bit now, and you may notice that I am being just a little bit more overtly cautious about everything. And that's simply because the armor that we've come in here with really doesn't have all that much protection on it, so pretty much a lot of things in the Nether right now can do quite significant damage to us. I also thought it would be a pretty smart idea to make like just a little one block highway just to traverse all of this soul sand, just to make my life a little bit easier. And I do see quite an open area over here, so it could be, oh boy, could be worth a very quick exploration over here, just to grab all of the quartz. Where the rest of the Nether trip was pretty uneventful, I just grabbed as much quartz as we could so that we could try and get as much XP as possible for working towards our armor. It's good to be home. And this area that I've dug out over the course of farming cobblestone has actually turned into quite a handy little area. to just place down all of our quartz so that we can build a tower and mine it all out. As we need to do a little bit of prep work, throw the gold in there. We need to empty all of our nether stuff into the chests that we cleared out earlier for the nether before jumping back over to our quartz to mine it out. And so with the nether and observers unlocked, I could jump into expanding our sugarcane farm because what we had already wasn't going to cut it for what we needed it for. So I dug down in order to connect this to our library that we built, and I also wanted to expand it so that we could build out more farms in the future if we needed them. In which, speaking about things I want to get done in this episode, I want to go ahead and just very quickly update you guys on the entranceway that we're building over on the Twitch live streams. I do live stream every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 PM UK time. I'd love for you guys to just click the link in the description and head over there. And whilst I'm shamelessly self-promoting it in my own Minecraft hardcore video, I'll also very kindly ask if you would just consider hitting that subscribe button, as it just reaffirms that you guys definitely want to see more of these episodes, and I have a goal to hit 100k subscribers, and I would love to see if we could try and hit that goal this year, but I can't do it without your guys' help. But we move on. Another quick repair situation. But right back to digging out the rest of this farm. And after a little bit of contemplation, I've finally decided what sort of design I want to have in here. As due to the width of this place, observers wasn't really going to work without it being odd, and one side would have to be closer to the wall than the other one, and I like to keep things even, so I'm going to experiment with a bit of a flying machine approach to this farm. Which does mean it may take a while to get all of the slime that we're going to need for this farm, but for now, we'll continue working towards that by first creating some manual farms that will help speed up the farming process so we can get XP faster. As I was doing that, it hit me we need a way to get some slimes, which we don't actually have anywhere in the world deep enough yet to find a slime chunk. I did remember that we ran into a swamp biome, and looking at this, it's pretty big, so we can probably go and hunt some slimes. Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli have already gone ahead, but I had yet another brainwave, so I've quickly ran back to the base, where I'm gonna grab a bunch of iron, as I thought I recalled having a few magma blocks that we could mine, but we go back through. With a little bit of bone meal from our chest, we should be able to also expand the grow lichen. And I was hoping to find it in this village over here, but I found some pumpkins and I'll take it because we need some for the idea that I have, which was to make a very simple swamp-based slime farm. But I realized very quickly that it just wasn't going to work. You actually needed to have a bunch of glow lichen and or a bunch of brown mushrooms, of which I didn't want to go back and get glow lichen, and I also didn't want to spend too much time grabbing mushrooms, so this idea fell flat on its face as I just ran out of time and the farm didn't work, as ultimately the iron golem ended up getting absolutely slaughtered. So I resorted to just running around and kicking the butts of a bunch of slime, which did get a little bit hairy at times. I'm also going to be honest, we were supposed to have got all of the slime blocks and built the farm and completed this section before the end of today, but there's no chance of that getting done. So once again, we are behind, so let's jump back into it and get the rest of this farm done. And that's me now pretty much officially out of redstone, so we'll have to move on for now, but we will come back and finish this off because I'm trying to turn over a new leaf and I really don't want to leave things unfinished, as we turn our attention to building and covering our nether portal. So first off, we need to get rid of the remaining trees around the portal. So to get this build started, we need to begin by building a stairway. This is going to help me understand kind of where everything is going to sit. I'm going to sleep this night away to get rid of the stupid sky rats. Curse you and your entire bloodline. Yes, burn. Burn. Well, I also really need to cover this slight ravine that I keep flipping falling down as well, because this is starting to really stress me out. But moving on, I think I'm going to try and tie it in with consistency and trying to make it feel like it's part of the environment, but I want to try and do it in a slightly different vibe this time. So I think, given that I want to do a 4 or 5 wide double staircase up to the nether portal, I think we'll go out 2 blocks. So we'll place down a tough brick here, put a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 block gap, 1, 2, another gap. So these should connect up to make a square. So I'm just very quickly going to just bring this up a couple of layers, in which of course I had to go back down into my mine to gather yet some more tuff. But jumping back up top, we have to jump into repeating the same thing on the other side. Yeah, that's about a good height. I think, let's add one more. Let's add one more block height to it. Actually, go then. We'll make it 2. Why not? I've also made a decision that I want this build to actually tie in with the consistency of the Dwarven fort out the front as well. So, in order to do that, we actually need to go ahead and build another layer of tough bricks around the base at 12 blocks high, which means we also do actually need to extend this up a little bit further so that it ties in with the build. So, we are going to need a little bit more tuff, which I am going to steal from my future self, as I'm taking it from the chests that we use in our streaming project. And by creating a little border around where we actually want to build, I think we can actually go ahead and reclaim some of the blocks back, as these will be hidden anyways, so we might as well use these up. I first needed to also grab some stone before jumping back over to continue with building the front of the structure that's going to house our nether portal. Now, it looks a little bit funky, but this is a trust the process. Speaking of process, I actually jumped over to take another break to build on the entranceway once again before jumping right back over to carry on with our usual build. Means that we should have plenty of sugarcane that we can go ahead and use to trade up to give us some more XP towards getting that end game armor that we're after. And I may have mentioned this already, but this is a different farm, by the way. This is a sugarcane farm, but it's going to be utilized for something different in the future. I just need to go ahead and grab this, as I'm going to use this to trade up as well. And I definitely need to deal with a mob problem in that building, but that's a problem for another video. Which gives us enough XP to now go ahead and create our ultimate endgame chestplate piece. Leaving only the legs and the boots left to go. And yes, I am going to do this gem at some point. I promise. I promise. Now I'm going to jump straight back into building and get on with blending these 2 stones together by using some deep slate brick to kind of add a bit of decoration around it. So we're going to go ahead and build it to look like this, where we're going to put a stairs upside down. Then we're going to put a slab, and then we're going to put another stair, and then another slab. And then repeat this process all the way around on both sides. And that's kind of getting there. I need to kind of repeat this design around the top and connect it to the front of the building. Then on our main structure, I added some things that are known as buttresses. Yep, that's the real word. Before adding some external buildings that are just there for a little bit of added decoration to our build. I've quickly come back to grab some deep slate bricks, as a community member showed me a link the other day to a Planet Minecraft build, where somebody had done a World of Warcraft Dwarven inspired build, and I thought it would be pretty cool to kind of experiment with that style of build in this episode, but I really wanted to add my own twist to it by tying it into the world like we have done with all of our other builds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place down some bricks on the outside. Then we're going to add a layer of tough bricks. And that's not looking too bad, but I think there's one more thing we could add to the sides that'll add a little bit more detail, but we have to jump into the Nether real quickly, as I don't really want to start messing the place up, but I do need to bridge across a bit of a gap here, which makes me very, very nervous. And after building a little platform, I've come all the way to the Nether simply to grab a little bit of glowstone. But now that we got glowstone, we can get back before we end up doing something stupid, especially since we don't have our endgame armor yet. And I think it might just be because it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, but there's just something inherently dwarven about zigzaggy stone staircase. I just love them so much. I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more of these in this world. Came to grab a little bit of redstone, which, to be honest, can't really afford to use that much, as we still need to expand our farm, but I want to go ahead and make a bunch of lamps. And we're definitely getting a nice build up of sugarcane right now whilst we're working away, but we're just going to plant a little bit more, as I realized we had some space, and then jump back over to our build as we place down 2 lamps and turn them on with a button. Oh no, it's a lever we need. So I went to make some. We slap it on the side, turn it on, then just fill this up and add some copper bars, and it adds a nice bit of detail, and it turns it into an actual building instead of just a pile of bricks. But I feel it's a little bit too flat, so let's go ahead and add a little bit more decoration to it. There we go, that's a little bit better. It doesn't have to be over the top, it just had to be a little bit of detail around the windows, but I really like that and I think that looks cool. So what I'm going to do next is add a little bit of decoration around the in which, as I add the roof to this build, I really would like to use andesite someday in a lot more of my builds moving forward, but given that we are literally starved for resources right now, we'll just have to stick with the stone brick. I'm then going to go and add another building on top to add a little bit of more layer and depth to this area. And I'm pretty happy with that, remembering that this is only supposed to be a very basic sort of background building. It's not supposed to be functional, it's just there to serve as a sort of barracks / temporary place, maybe where the dwarves would even house themselves that are on duty guarding this old random sort of portal thing that they don't quite understand. And don't dare sort of go through, as they're just here to guard the kingdom rather than to utilize it for their own gain, as they're more bothered about the gems that will be in the future cave that we're building down here. I am also sadly going to have to sort of tear into my sugarcane reserves a little in order to repair my shovel. No, that it went extremely far, but that should be enough for what we need to get done anyway. As we need to go ahead and very quickly tear down this little mud hill, but given that it's only a small one, we'll just power through this without jumping into a time lapse. I think it's also worth reminding ourselves that we are also on a mission to get rid of the snow as well, as I actually don't want too much snow on this mountaintop. Blaming arrow skeletons almost freaking ruined me, Jesus. Before I was rudely interrupted though, it is just a little bit of a problem that we don't have much of a system in order to repair our tools just yet. It is something that I'm working on, don't worry, but since we don't have that system in place right now, I have to be very selective about just how much snow we remove until we actually have a better way of repairing our shovel. So I felt I should have just cleared that up a little bit, as there's definitely been a little bit of confusion in past episodes as to why there's snow here and the direction, as a lot of people seemed confused why there would be moss and things growing where there's snow, which is a valid concern, but I am planning on getting rid of a lot of snow. And I hate to include this in a video, but sometimes I think we all need to just take a deep breath and remember it's just a video game. It's not that deep, bro. Jumping back up to the top though, we need to get a job done that I should have done a while ago, which is running around and lighting the place up. As you can tell, we've got creepers. Ooh, there we are. Oh, we got another one. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. As we jump back in the building, we need to go ahead and expand the wall on the right hand side. Finishing off with the final detail. Decided to cut off the end of the walls and not attach it to this, so it seems more feasible as a defensive position. So you can imagine the dwarves in a battle situation would be charging out here, they'd have the shields up, they'd form a little dwarven shield wall along here, and then anything that sort of came out of this mysterious portal could be easily defended. Popped back to my temporary storage area to grab a little bit of bone meal. I'm also going to need to temporarily nab a little bit of moss, as we're going to have to now transform the area outside of this build, in which I want to tie it in with this area over here to make it all consistent. And in order to do that, all I need to do is place down a moss block and begin to bone meal it to spread the moss. I needed some more bone meal, so I've come to grab some more bones, and I'm also going to need to head down into our mine area as I need a little bit more tuff. With a little bit more, I teleport back up top where we're just continuing to spread the moss and clearing out the snow. Although, like I said earlier, we're kind of running out of durability on our shovel, so we're probably not going to be able to clear much more for this build in this particular episode. I should also document for transparency's sake that we are back over where our stone area is, in trying to get a few moss blocks to use in crafting some mossy cobblestone. So as we jump back over to the area, I've gone ahead and prepared a little area here so that I could just very quickly explain the way that we do things in our Dwarven world, especially for those that might be a little bit new here, as I am in the process of trying to create my own custom Dwarven biome, and I'm going to be refining this as we go along. But in order to do this, it's essentially just continuous rocky outcrops kind of piled on top of each other, and in order to achieve this, we use a little bit of deep slate to simulate a little bit of shadow and a little bit of depth, and the darker stone at the bottom. Then we like to blend in to tough bricks. This adds a little bit of green into the rock and then helps to build up that kind of cobbly element to it, before we then go into some mossy cobblestone, which looks a little bit like this, as this helps add a little bit of a gradient to the build and just spices things up and makes us feel a little bit more like professional builders. The time lapse is done. Snow really is the worst. I can't stand the little snow carpets and leaves all the way across this. I have had some ideas about how we can actually tackle this, ranging from building a giant glass ceiling at build height or putting chests down, which my only issue is I'm worried a little bit about the shadows that might cast, so we're going to have to do some experimentation. But we'll ignore that for now, as I really want to showcase this black stone pathway that we've built here. This is the start of a new type of pathway, which I'm going to be experimenting with and kind of doing variations of as we expand our Dwarven kingdom, because I really want to test using this black stone for the path. I really like this kind of like pebbled cobblestone effect, but I like that it's quite dark, it's very trodden on, it'll contrast nicely, especially as we do a lot of stone builds. I just think it's a really nice pathway, and I experimented with blending it out into some deep slate and then again into tough, which kind of adds a cool little border to it, and I really like it. So I'm definitely going to be experimenting with this moving forward, And if you've got any ideas in the comments of what I could do to maybe improve this, then I'm all ears. Well, that's enough rambling, as we've still got a little bit more to do, so I'm heading back down once again in order to grab some more cobblestone, which went by a little bit uneventful. And I also thought I'm going to grab some andesite whilst I'm down here, because I've had an idea where, after bone sawing, we can go ahead and put down some polished andesite stairs. And I'm going to add a border to the stairway by using the deep slate. I also felt that these giant towers were also just a little bit too flat, so I added in these kind of like open and close bracket looking slits, which could be used as a secondary defense for dwarves to fire crossbows out of and such. This little building on the right that we built earlier needs a little bit of a texture doing at the base, so I'm just running in and adding in some tough bricks just to kind of add a little bit more variety and tie it in with the other build. Once again, I jumped down to finally get our end game leggings, making us one set piece closer to having our full gear for this episode. I'm also finally taking up the sugarcane farm that we built at our starter base so that I can go and trade up the sugarcane for that little bit of experience. I also totally forgot that in one of my live streams when we were mining for some tuff, I actually ended up getting a bunch of redstone, so that'll be handy for our farm build. Sadly, we can't extend it that way without going out of the mountain, so the only other thing we can do is either build up the mountain on the outside or expand this farm downwards, which is what I think we'll do in the future. But for now, that should give us more than enough sugarcane for what we need. And don't worry about this hole here. This is eventually going to be a stairway that takes us up to that level there. And we just see a cheeky little dude up there just chilling out. She's just vibing. And after grabbing all of the materials needed to finish off the build, so let's go ahead and break our previous portal so we can rebuild the new one. And my idea here is to tie the nether portal into an ancient structure to give it more of a reason as to why the dwarves would be this paranoid about it, as if this portal could tear down a historic sort of culture, then the dwarves have obviously got a reason to be slightly panicked and to be a little bit more defensive. So we'll begin by creating the portal, and I think what I'm going to do is make it a little bit taller than before. So we're going to bring this out 3 blocks on either side of the stair. Going to take it up about 10 blocks on either side. I don't want to make it too tall because I don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb. But I'm just building up the mountain on either side so it's got some level of support underneath using a mix of cobblestone and stone. So now with the sides of the mountain sort of brought up a little bit, I'm going to jump into a time lapse as I need to go ahead and design a frame that's going to hide the frame of the portal and make it look a little bit ancient and sort of withered. Well, I've finally finished the most over-the-top portal design for a simple dwarven world, but I'm pretty happy with that build. Just needed to run back to craft a flint and steel so we can light it and see how it looks. And with the purple glow, that makes everything look super cool at night. Let's just double check that it connects up. I am so glad I was recording that because I think it just... What even just happened there? Was that a creeper? With that in place, I'm now just adding a little bit more decoration, and I'm actually trying to expand the gap between the passageway by 1 block going down, just so we have more of the nether portal in view down in our base. Oh, no you don't. I am sleeping this night away. I do not want it to snow again. I already need to run around and get rid of all the snow for the flipping thumbnail. Moving straight on though, I'm now bridging into the middle as I want to go ahead and tear down this little gem so we can rebuild it. Which I believe if we get some red dye and some blue dye and a little bit of white dye, we can make magenta and pink dye. So we'll make some magenta and we'll make some pink. And you may have seen me in the time-lapse delete and rebuild this twice, and I'm still not 100% happy with it. I think the magenta really works as highlights, but I think the problem is, truthfully, I think I need to scale it up a little bit more and add a little bit more of a block palette in there. I'm thinking some of the end brick from the end city would help with kind of building a bit of a palette into there with some obsidian. First to say that I think we are a long way off having this crystal in the center of our library complete, and it's definitely going to be something that we're going to come back to once again in the future, so you'll have to tune in to the future episodes to see just how we progress this. And I don't imagine we'll have gained a lot more sugarcane here, but we'll take it just to see if trading it up will get us that closer to level 30, which it did get us some, but not as far as we need to go. I am clutching at straws here just to try and get XP as quickly as possible by breeding all of the sheep. And as this project ended, the hall was also getting close to being completed, and we finally had our nether portal in place. There was just one thing in my heart that we hadn't done in this world yet, and that was build ourselves a little starter home. But before we jumped into the home, there was one tiny detail I did need to update you guys on in terms of the entrance hall, and that was we used some of the dirt and stone in front of the fortress we had built back in episode 1 to build a mountain on top of the hallway, thus hiding it from view and finishing it off. My lord, I yearn for fast travel in this game, but let's just sleep away the rest of the night quickly. And of course it starts snowing. Why wouldn't it? I'm actually going to wait inside until it stops, because I forgot to bring my big fur coat. Nothing to do with the fact that shaders get buggy in the snow at such a high altitude. But scaling up the mountain and into the next day, I think this is the perfect area to build our first starter house in our world. As I don't think I've addressed this in the videos yet, but actually just over this ridge from our old base is an entire new area that we can expand into for the top section of our Dwarven city, as well as having access underground where we can build the below ground section of our Dwarven city. So I think about here would make the perfect area for our starter base. Also, heading over here feels like we should be playing some sort of area unlocked music like you get in video games. In fact, alright, less of the theatrics. Let's get back to sorting this area and building. As first, I would like to get a better sense of what this area looks like without so much snow in the way. So heading back down, we're going to build a couple of shovels as we're probably going to need them. Then we're jumping into clearing the snow. Now, I am a little bit picky about how much snow I want in this area. I didn't really want it to be a snowy mountaintop. I just wanted it to be a mountain range, which to me there's a little bit of a difference, but a little bit of snow on top of the peaks wouldn't really go amiss. And this is pretty much panned out to be the size that I want it to be. So first up, we're turning our attention to the outside of the building, where I want to go ahead and terraform the path down to the level that I want it to be, as well as begin to build up the rocks that the building is going to sit up on. So I got to work leveling out the ground so we could see what sort of space we were working with, including filling in the area where we're going to be building the main entranceway of our house. Moving on to the next part, where we could officially begin the terraforming aspect of building up the sides of the walkway. And as I'm a huge stickler for being truthfully transparent with y'all, all of the stone gathered so far has been gathered from this area in particular, which is going to be the future entrance to our underground section, or the underpass of the city. But that's not all, as we also have Swift Sneak, as you can tell, so we should probably jump back in time a little bit and share the story of how that came about. We went into an ancient city on a live stream not long ago, and it was one butt-clenching adventure. Fortune 3, efficiency 4, unbreaking 3 meant, what in the holy ho is that? Swift Sneak 2? Damn, I'm taking that. But now with the entrance city cleared and Swift Sneak, we can make progress on our endgame armor, where we'll just get to work doing some burring. I think I've overstayed my welcome for now, and I've got the levels that I needed. We're back up top. We can go and add the entrance to the boots, but I miscalculated, so we needed to head back down just to get the last couple of levels very quickly, and then head back up where we finally got our last piece of the puzzle, giving us our final set of endgame armor. So we can go ahead and take this armor set off, which is the first diamond armor we ever got in this world, and then we can put on our brand new hot stuff with our swift sneak that we managed to get. Oh yeah, so fast we zooming. We absolutely zoom. Us dwarves are natural sprinters, very dangerous across short distances. Anyway, moving swiftly on without quitting my day job. There we are, there's our first diamond armor, and there's our first set of iron armor, and we've got 2 more armor sets reserved for something. I'm not sure what. I'm sure we'll put something on there. Maybe we'll recreate this armor set one day. Who knows? But I do just want to very quickly say that I am going to be introducing the live streams here on this main YouTube channel again from this week, so make sure to catch them. But we are also still trying to hit Twitch partner, so if you don't mind watching the streams over on Twitch, you know where to go. The link is in the description. But let's jump back to build. Beginning with the entrance hallway, I started by building a doorway, and I decided to try and keep this consistent with the library by building it out of copper. Then moving on to building the front of the house, I wanted to add a little bit of detail, starting off with what I believe is called a batter, or even potentially a talus base. It's basically that sort of sloped thing that you see at the base of castle walls and dwarven architecture. I think they look really cool, and I wish Minecraft would add more slanted blocks, but we have to deal with what we're given, so we use instead. And moving on to the walls, I'm experimenting here by trying to use some smooth blocks to add an outline to the front of the build, trying to add a little bit of detail without overdoing it. I then thought I'd pull this back a couple of blocks so that we could add an upper level that would sort of act like a little bit of a balcony. Then hopping down to the ground floor, I got to work adding in the foundation for where the entrance hall would be located. But then there's nothing like running out a little bit of tuff to snap you out of that hyper focus that you're in building, so we had to go and gather some more. You might be able to tell behind me, I got a little bit carried away, and yeah, I started building the tower that's going to go on the side of the house. But anyway, let's jump back to the house, because I don't want to get distracted. I then added stone walls, which were going to be support pillars, but then I realized I didn't really like this idea, so I cancelled that, and instead worked on adding a floor on the upper level. I did manage to find that hyper-focus stride again, so I just jumped straight in and decided to just finish off the top section of the building. And one aspect of Dwarven building that I absolutely love is adding in that element of making it feel a part of its surroundings. So I decided to go in and add a sort of fallen rock formation on the roof so that it would tie in with the rest of the mountain. But one tiny detail you didn't get on the time-lapse is this little stairway that we've added at the back, which I might extend out 1 block in this direction, and I also added in a support in the middle of the room. Knowing that the roof is kind of made out of stone, this has been something that a few people have kind of brought up in previous live streams of asking how would a stone roof work without a support. So I decided to add in a little bit of realism. And one detail I am very quickly falling in love with is using these upside down stairs to kind of add in a separation of layers. So I decided to add some stone stairs in here to kind of separate the side wall from the roof, and I feel it just adds a little bit more depth, so I'm definitely going to be using this more and more in future builds and experimenting with this. But before I get into the fine details of the build, let's jump into getting the walls of the tower done next door. I think I really need to redo the roof a little bit, as the shape kind of needs to go up and over rather than just flat and then curved. So there's a little bit of work to do there, but I'm not really happy with the stone. And once we've actually done terraforming the area, this isn't actually going to fit in as much as I would hope it would. So we're probably going to redo that. As well as one thing that I think is really important is I kind of like the idea that we did with this building for our iron farm, where we kind of shaded it and made it get a little bit darker as it got further down. I think I might do a little bit of shading around these parts just to help accentuate these bits. But that's going to come at the end, as I want to move on now and kind of get the shape of the storage room done. Now that that's done, we can go around and begin placing down all of the outer walls. I'm also using some chisel blocks to help add a little bit of a divide and add a little bit of decoration into the storage room. And whilst I'm gathering some cobblestone to craft some andesite with some of the nether quartz we gained earlier in the series, I am also wanting to say that you may indeed notice there has been a change of shaders, and it's because Complementary Unbound is now released with WadZee support. And as much as I really loved Photon, Complementary Unbound will always just have a little place in my heart. But dropping off all these decorative blocks that we're going to be using in this room, we jump on to the next thing that we need to gather, which is a bunch of stuff to make some copper golems. As they've been out a while now, and I haven't actually used them in Minecraft yet, so I want to experiment with using them in our first storage room of our hardcore world. I'm really sorry to keep harping on about it in the same sentence, but seriously, no shader pack does the Aurora Borealis like the Complementary Unbound. But getting back on task, we're here to grab all of the copper that we have, which I think that's pretty much it, but it'll do for now, donkey. It'll do, as we'll get all of it smelted, as we're going to need as much as we can possibly get. We also need to head to our original base because, yep, we have some pumpkins I thought we did that we can use. But back at the base, we can quickly snip. Then we'll store all of this for a hot second and come back to that once we've actually designed this room. So as we quickly mark out the floor, as I'm going to try something a little bit different with this interior. As on the outside, we're going to go for a kind of a wooden coppery feel for the chests and the sorting system. Then on this inner section, I actually want to make it a little bit more industrial and try and build a built-in sort of smelter system so that we have a 2-in-1 functioning room. Not really sure how it's going to work out like most of the things that I built, but we'll give it a try. Well, I'll admit this took me way longer than I was hoping it would to do, but we finally got it done. And you know what? I'm actually quite happy with it. I did these like little furnaces and we put some storage in there for coal and excess coal. And they've got little chimneys above the furnaces which would like direct the smoke up through the mountain. We haven't quite finished the roof yet, but we will get around to doing that at some point as we ran out of tuff. And then we've got each of these storage segments here with a space left to put some copper chests for the copper golems when we make them to sort the items. And the idea is that we'll run along and we'll have different sections for different sorts of items, place the items in the chest, and then the golems will just slowly and casually just sort everything out for us, taking out some of the work, allowing me to be a little bit extra lazy. I mean, focus on building is what I was trying to say there. But moving on, I'm now going to work on getting the main area complete, starting with the floor, in which I do agree with what some of you will be saying right now, in that I do tend to rely on checkered floor designs quite a lot in recent times, but it's just because I really like using them. And I think kickstarting off the interior, we're going to go ahead and create a bit of an oven in the corner where they would be cooking all of the food, in which we'll use a little bit of Dwarven engineering to basically plumb the smoke from the cooker into the furnaces in the other room. That was about as close as I could make it look to something venting into the exhaust, so we'll deal with that. Finishing off with a bit of decoration, I think having a bit of a communal table across the room as well would probably look good, using some deep slate and add in a little bit of red wool to make it look like there's a bit of a fancy runner across the table. I just think it adds a little bit something to it. And we'll go ahead and add in a few shelves and smaller details. We'll throw on a few bits of armor as well. And truthfully, if you are sat there wondering what my experience with interiors is, yeah, you're looking at it. I haven't really managed to do a lot of interiors in my 2 years as a Minecraft content creator. But anyway, we move on. As for the bedroom upstairs, with a little bit of gathering some wood from the new area, means we can finish our sort of kingly bed. It's nothing special, but it looks nice, and that'll pretty much do for a bed in our starter home. However, this build is definitely missing a brewery area and a home brew situation, because the dwarves need their mead. So we'll real quickly dig out a 9x9 room. Then I want to go ahead and give it a little bit of a basement vibe at the back of the building. So we're going to add in some brick. Then we're going to place in some wooden beams. Then we're going to add in some beer barrels into the mix. Then we need some legs that are holding the beer barrels up. Heading back to our old base, I think I have a brewing stand somewhere. Yep, that should help towards getting our home brewery set up. And this should allow us to add the final details, which will add little taps to our brewery. Then we also need to go ahead and build a little table. And the brewing stand can go on top. And that's our brewing room pretty much done. Although I may have made a slight mistake adding little pressure plates to the floor because it's causing trapdoors to fly around everywhere. But it's pretty much done. Then it allowed us to move on to the cross section where the stairs up to the bedroom are, and I decided to just do a little bit of a basic design in here, nothing too fancy. Jump straight into building the tower section of the house. This is the area where the dwarf is kind of keeping his little experiments, his kind of man cave if you like, and at the ground floor I decided to experiment with a bit of an armadillo XP farm, something that would help with the early game repairing of our tools so we could get to work on digging out some larger areas, not having to worry about constantly repairing our pickaxe. And I'll admit it took a few revisions as I realised I needed 2 spaces at the back of the farm for the zombie to sit, which is required for the armadillos to stay in the fetal position. So jumping forward to our dwarven hall where we've actually got our little pet happy ghast, we actually need to then go ahead and go and grab some armadillos. Luckily for us, there's some right outside our kingdom. I began to feel the excitement as things were going really smoothly. We trapped one armadillo. It took us a little while to get them attached to the ghast. Then it took me a little while to get on the ghast just for this to happen. So we headed back and grabbed one final armadillo. Hopefully we won't have to do this again because traveling in ghast format is an incredibly slow endeavor. But with the hitboxes on so I don't accidentally kill them again, let's get these guys out of their boats and see if we can lure them into their new home. Just need to try and coax you guys into the hole. There we go. There we are, we got those 2 in the hole. Then we just need to go ahead and place down some temporary blocks just so the babies don't get out. And then begins the long progress of breeding them until we have a full stack of 24 mobs. And as it's daytime, and the last thing we need to get this farm working is a zombie in this boat, I figured we could go ahead and at least start getting some of the copper golems in just to actually test if this system works and also begin to sort everything out. So I think along this stretch here, we'll put all of the stone and stuff. So let's go ahead and grab some of the deep slate. Okay, that might need a little bit more organization than I thought it would. Got a little bit sidetracked and almost forgot to put a zombie in the boat, but that's in there. I don't know whether or not if I need to have bred all of these first though, so I might actually have to... Yeah, I've just realised I might actually have to kill this guy, then put him in at the end. So that's delaying that a little bit. Gonna grab some boats and doors, along with some building blocks that we've literally just had the golem spend 20 minutes sorting as we're heading back into the Nether. Which, good job I bought the copper doors because that almost just ended my hardcore run, and I wish I was recording, but a ghast just absolutely knocked me off the bridge that I had. Threw me into the lava, and thank God I bought these copper doors, otherwise we would probably be dead by now. And now I just need to figure out how to get out of this situation right here. Wasn't really looking for ancient debris, but I'll take it. Oh, I see daylight. Well, Nether light. Yeah, we were up there, and then we got knocked off and landed in the lava down here. That was... Oh, that was a stressful 10 minutes. It's kind of a good job that we conveniently made a spiral back up to our skyway when we came to get our dried gas. And I'm going to go and grab a bow and arrow, I think. But all I came in here was I discovered this fortress the other day. when I was streaming, so we can head over there and make a blaze farm. So I'm gonna grab a quick bow and arrow right there. Day 691, and that's the closest we've come to losing our hardcore world so far. As in the previous episode, we branched off to the left. I think this time all we do is branch off to the right and try and just remember to keep our path marked so we know how to get back. Close, we're getting closer. And I see a spawner, so we could definitely make a farm when we get to it. That's a stairway down made. I actually had to run along here and then kind of jump off and risk gamble a little bit on landing on this roof, which luckily there was a skeleton, and that's about it. So we can go ahead and block this off. Then I'm also going to build a 2-block high wall along here just because we're being shot at. And there's our first into the fire achievement. Ooh, I found stairs. I'm actually glad that I've found this because I really want to grab some nether wart, so we'll grab this whilst we're here, which will be useful for potions. Yo, no way, we've literally just got our first wither skull in the middle of building this farm. Anyway, let's jump back into the time lapse. And I'm interrupting the time-lapse again as I've had to head back as I was burning through food, so I need to replenish my food and grab some more building bricks as I kind of ran out of the nether brick that we were using. To be honest, I just needed a bit of a break. My heart rate's been going. So we spent a little bit of time taking a couple of deep breaths and then headed back into the nether where we could finish off the build, and we finally had our first functioning farm in our world that was, quite frankly, probably not going to be that useful. However, back at the house, we probably didn't even need to build that farm, as in the process of building it, we ended up getting a stack and a half of blaze rods anyway, but it's always nice to have the farm there in case we need it. But jumping straight back into building, as we're still breeding the armadillos, we can go ahead and put in the floor for the next tier of our tower. Quickly crafting ladders. We can place them down, giving us access to the first floor, and I've already placed down the brickwork where we can kind of zigzag the stairs on either side of the rooms, and we've got to place down some torches to finish off the floors. Heading into our villager trading space, which I do want to just stress, by the way, we will be decorating this in a possible live stream in the future, but we're going to do some trading real quickly. Crafting a second enchanting bench. Then heading up to the second floor, we can go ahead and build our second enchanting space, which I will say the floor is actually off kilter, so there's no way that we can actually center this to make it look nice, which is exactly the issue we had with the farm. So I think we'll just go ahead by maybe putting the back wall along here and just maybe putting it off center one and stressing everybody out. Giving us our capability of getting some, flame power 3 and unbreaking 3. That was a pretty damn good entrance. I will admit my mind is drawing up blanks on what to do with this last floor, but I did also want an access port for when we have access to the elytra, so I actually also went ahead and did a drop down chute. So we can kind of take off, land in here, and then just go boom straight down to the bottom floor, just speeding up the navigation of the house. And I've just used the last spider eye that I think I've got in my possession to breed a bunch of armadillos, so that pretty much sums that up. So coming back to the blaze rods we gained earlier, we can grab a few of them. We can head into our little dungeonette, well, cellar area, create a bunch of blaze powder to power the brewing stand. Then we can actually go ahead and begin with grabbing a bunch of glass to make some bottles, allowing us to make some splash potion of infested, giving us the local brewery. And now accessing the brewery stand and having all of that capability means we can open up so much more in this world, including building the Guardian farm again, which will allow us to get the sort of end game ultimate repair tool station going, and also be able to zombify villagers, which will be pretty handy. And before we wrap up the interior of this starter house, I actually want to go ahead and build a bunch of Eyes of Ender, which should give us access to finding the end portal. And if we head into the mine to quickly grab some obsidian, heading back to our base, gives us access to finally be able to craft an ender chest in our world. So we've now got 2 ender chests, so we can go ahead and we can place one down, and I know just the place where we'll place down the base one, so it's kind of out of the way, and I don't actually know if it needs to be accessible, but we've got access to it in... oh no, we don't have access to it, but we can access this one, which means that we do now have our... wait. Oh, that was almost the wrong one. But it does mean we can now organize everything, and we can have a little bit better inventory management, so we don't have to worry about taking up so much space with all of the tools, making building a lot goddamn easier. And heading into the last section of the video, we're gonna need to do a little bit of material gathering. So we're gonna need a bunch of iron blocks. Then with that done, we need to go and get just a tiny bit more tuff, which there's a few deposits down in the mine left that we can grab a hold of. Then crafting a bunch of tough bricks back at base. Then finishing off with building some stone bricks and some slabs and stairs, we can actually go ahead and finish off the storage room exterior. Then we're adding in like a boulder covering up the section here. It was to try and prevent mobs from spawning, but the more I've got into this, the more it's less doing the job that I was hoping it would do. So now I'm kind of just throwing this in for a little bit of extra decoration. Then we can go ahead and use a little bit of deep slate again to try and add in some more boulders like we did here. Then we can move that into some tuff. But I'm now moving on to adding in the extra corner elements that we had on the front of the tower when we built it. We just need to add it to all the other sides. And whilst working on the corners, I did actually get completely distracted and end up getting carried away by redoing the entire front of the building in trying to create a more natural rocky outcrop that the building is built upon, as well as doing it on top to try and accentuate the boulders, including the front of the building where I tried to add in a few walls to add a bit of depth and a little bit of texture, as if like some of the wall had kind of like crumbled away a little bit. I don't really know what I was hoping to achieve with it, but it didn't quite work, admittedly. But in the final section of the video, we need to move on to doing the final section of the house, which is the stairways leading up to it. Now, I have an idea of how I want to design this, but I'm not really sure if the block type that I've chosen is going to work, but there's only one way to find out. Well, the entranceway is just about done. This is kind of the idea that I was going for the pathway that I was thinking about doing throughout the Dwarven Kingdom. Just to kind of add a little bit of a different path, as the sort of general surrounding is going to be kind of stone and light greys. So I thought adding basalt and mixing it in with some other blocks might be a bit of a unique pathway. And yes, I did just forget the name of the block there, but that's not the only thing I have to reveal to your faces. But out of building our starter house, our hall was beginning to take shape, and we began the corridor into what is going to be our newfound city. But we also needed a way to access this from our upper outside area of the city that we've been building so far, so we're jumping into the next project. So we're going to need to head out of our house, where you'll already see some of the opening to the underground section here, and this is what we need to clear in order to build our entranceway to the Dwarven city. So we will put on the music of my people, and let's see if we can get this done in the next 2 hours. Do need to take a very quick break though and head into our sugarcane farm, as we're going to need to grab some emeralds so we can go ahead and restock our food, because as you can see we've only got 9 golden carrots left, and I don't really want to fall short of not having food on me and ending up in a sticky situation. So heading through to our tiny villager farm in the starter fortress that we built in episode number 1, we're going to go ahead and buy some golden carrots, which I do know that we do need to build a actual more permanent solution. And yes, I know that we do have the option to get farmers in the library and kind of utilize that area to farm them there, but I want an excuse to build another building and experiment a little bit with a design that would fit more suitably with the lore. But wrapping that up, we're not even done yet, and I've forgotten just how slow it actually is to mine out stone when you don't have a beacon. Didn't even realize that this pickaxe was only efficiency 4, so we're gonna fix that one real quickly. Well, we did end up getting mending on both of the pickaxes, but let's jump into mining out the rest. And as we need to go back up to our start house and repair our pickaxes, I'm also going to go ahead and craft 2 more, as we are actually going to need a full shulker's worth of diamond pickaxes, just so we can make it easier and more efficient to mine out large areas moving forward. But as we built it in the previous episode, we've also got our enchanting table where we can at least try and get some decent enchants, but we're now under level 30, but that shouldn't take us a second, as all we actually have to do is knock that out, set this on fire, then place the glass blocks back down, and then hitting this button is going to eject a splash potion of infestation, allowing us to get some experience to repair not only our pickaxes, but also get the last one. But with a fully repaired pickaxe, it allowed us to jump back down and begin to clear out the final block, which allowed us to end phase 1 of this build by shaping some of the nearby environment, finally making it ready to jump into our very first entrance to our massive Dwarven City area. But jumping into a new day, we started off by prepping our pickaxes. Now that we've got a few extra pickaxes, we can now jump into the planning and the building phase, which in order to actually plan this build, we need to see what sort of height we're working with. So I'm just very quickly building a ruler, which gives us about 38 to 45 blocks to utilize in this build. Actually, I'm also going to figure out how many blocks wide this is as well, as I do have some inspiration for a build, but I need to figure out where we're going to have to make some adjustments to the design in order to make this fit. Which, after some jiggery pokery, we've managed to find the middle. So this is where the center door will go into the new kingdom. To add a bit of splash of color into this build, I'm going to go ahead and utilize wooden doors. So we're going to need a few different shades of wood. So we'll start by grabbing some of the spruce that's still around our kingdom. Didn't quite count how much spruce I need, but there should be enough. And the best part about playing with WadZee is the next tree that I need is right over there. One thing that's also worth stating is that all of the content that I have ever touched in Minecraft, you guys have pretty much seen over the last few years. So my experience with pale oak biomes goes pretty much from standing here today and what you saw in episode number 1. So to those select few meanies, how would I supposed to know that you're supposed to need 4 saplings to grow a pale oak tree? I'm gonna be honest though, it was kind of funny reading your guys' comments. It put a smile on my face. Alright, let's jump into building our door. So we're gonna go ahead and build an outline for the door in a darker wood, which is why we got the dark oak. Now I'm filling in the base of the door with stripped spruce, and I'm also adding in some stripped oak logs as a form of highlight towards the middle of the door. I'm not really sure how this is going to look, but I'm hoping if it turns out how I think it's going to turn out, then it should work. But I don't think it quite works, so let's go and get that out and just swap it for spruce. I think we're going to need to get our happy gas for this. Oh, that's much better, isn't it? Now, don't worry, this door isn't going to be flat. I've got a cool idea for something that I want to do for this to bring it up to the next level. Which, to pull off, I think I'm going to use some cobblestone and andesite. Not sure if the texture's going to be right, but we'll give it a go. In which it's a good job we're building this, because we've already been besieged once already by mobs. So we'll start off by placing down some smooth andesite. That'll act as a highlight. Then we'll go into normal andesite. Place down some hinge support, and that's one door done. I ended up redoing the face a few times, as I actually didn't really like the kind of highlight and darker spot approach, because it kind of made the texture a bit weird. So decided to make the beard out of cobblestone so that it had more of a beard texture, then just kept in the andesite highlights on the top as if the sun is kind of beaming down from this direction. But I'm pretty happy with that overall. We've just got a few spawn-proofing things to do, but we can leave that until the end. Now we need to jump in and get the second door done. Chicken jockey! Admittedly, I did say I was never ever going to do that again after singing Llama in a previous episode, but I'm blaming you guys. Anyway, let's move on, as we are now well underway, and I have got a pretty good stride going on. Given that we're not going to need any wood anymore, I think we can go ahead and organize it into a chest. But focusing on the next part of the entranceway, I have used deep slate tiles to outline the door, as this is a slightly darker shade than the deep slate brick, and I really wanted to help accentuate the depth by using a slightly darker shade. So in order to build the next bezeled part, as well as the frame of the exterior, we're going to need a bunch of deep slate to make some deep slate brick. So we can head into our Dwarven mine, where we can go ahead and mine our deep slate. I also officially began to mine out the main city area so we could gather some stone. But after a quick repair job, we are now back at the entrance, where we've got enough materials to probably get most of this built. We might need to grab a few more, as you guys know that I don't really plan things well enough to know exactly how much we need, and sometimes we need a few extra little bits here and there. But we're going to grab some deep slate brick, which is a little bit lighter than the tiles, as we're now going to bezel this out one more block and follow the same pattern, but create this all the way around. Then want to add in a bit of a framework across the top here so that we can add a little bit of depth. So we'll have some normal stone kind of behind here. And I think this is definitely going to be a trust the process situation. But next up, we need to actually go ahead and fill in the walls from here to the edge on either side. And I think I'm going to try something. I don't know how it's going to look, but well, again, trust the process. Which means starting with the wall texture, which is going to sit behind the statues that we're going to build, before very quickly realizing that there wasn't going to be any room for the statue on the right of the entrance. So I actually decided we were going to do some terraforming, which proceeded to take me a couple of hours to clear out some stone, so we could jump onto the base of the statue, where I added in the same depth technique we used in the door frame, and then the building of the grand statues could begin. So far, this is looking pretty damn good, but now we need to go ahead and work on the top section. Starting off with the outermost frame, we're just going to place a block down and then go in and then go up 2 blocks. Then we just need to repeat it on the other side. In which I really hope I'm not overusing this technique, but I really do like using the deep slate to add a little bit of depth, and since we've used it in the door frame, we'll go ahead and continue it to add a little bit of a bezel in the roof section. Nothing like taking a risky sleep right in the middle of a drop, but then we work on the main door frame. And then following the design, we're going to take it one block in, but to try and help add a little bit more depth, we're going to use the deep slate tiles to make it just that shade dark. Plus, it also adds a bit of a varying texture as well and keeps the build looking that little bit spicy. Now we have to go ahead and fill in the wall on the top section, and I'm thinking about trying something a little bit different again to keep the texture varied by mixing some stone brick with some normal stone to kind of give it that natural kind of brick feel. I also want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to Trucker, who has now made me see this build in an entirely new light after saying it looks like a dwarf that's hurled up with his knees against his chest. And now it's ruined the build, but yeah, we're gonna keep it. But we'll top up our stone and brick and jump into a time lapse. Next up, we're going to need some deep slate tiles to add a trim under the roof section that we're going to add. As we just need to fill in these two little front spots here. That should be that bit done. Then we're jumping in to start the outline of the platform that the roof section is going to sit on. Then we've got the fun job of filling all of this in. I did come down to get some more deep slate as we had run out, and looking back up at this, it's too flat. It needs a bit of a varying texturing, so I'm going to take some normal deep slate up, where the snow falling is actually helping me out a little bit because I'm kind of using it as a natural way to figure out how the game is laying the snow and basically just swapping the bricks around the snow out for the deep slate. It is hard to tell in the snow and it is a little bit subtle, but I do kind of like it, so we'll leave that there. And I do want to add a bit of a highlighted frame around the top decorative section, so we're going to smelt a bunch of stone so we can get some smooth stone. So with that done, we can now add the frame around the top section. Now, to fill it in, I actually need some andesite, so we're going to have to use up all of the quartz that we've got in order to make it, as we're running a little bit low. But, jumping back up the top, I'm a little bit worried, because this is actually starting to get a little bit taller than the surrounding mountainside, and I don't want it to swamp the view of this building from other areas of the kingdom. So I think I might actually go ahead and bring this down maybe to about 4 or 5 blocks high instead of 12, which shouldn't take us too long to do. And one more block and that's that bit done. Then we're going to fill this in with some stone brick and try and do some fancy work with the andesite that we've collected. So we'll jump into a time lapse because as I'm kind of eyeballing this, I'm not really sure quite what I want to do. I'm now doing one of many side quests here, but I realized that I ran out of food, so I came to our mini trading area to grab some more, and I thought whilst I'm over here, I may as well use the Eyes of Ender to find the dungeon. One, so we can get rid of the eyes out of our inventory, and to just make a little bit of progress in the game. It's a good job we did come this way because it's taken us in that direction. And if you tune into my Twitch live streams, you'll realize right now that I am getting severe PTSD from using these eyes in this world. Ooh, it's taken us back in the other direction, and we haven't lost an eye yet, which is weird, actually. Quite bizarre. Now back the other way, so I think we are getting close to the location. Oh! Ooh! I see it! We need to try and get in here before we drown, which shouldn't be too difficult. And there we are, we've got the I Spy achievement. Now we just gotta spend 5 minutes searching this area to try and find the actual portal. Apple, iron armor, not really anything worth taking. Oh, another chest up here, actually. Oh, golden apple, we'll take that. we got an armor trim. Nice, that'll add to our collection. Oh, ooh, we found it. At least there's one. That's all I'm going to say on that one. At least there's one. But we can go ahead and use up the rest to fill the portal. And there we are. We've finally unlocked the end portal. And now we can go and prepare to fight the Ender Dragon, which I'll probably do on a live stream. So make sure you head down to the link in the description and follow the Twitch channel. I go live every Tuesday and Thursday. And we have one of the greatest communities. And we have a laugh in every single live stream. But let's jump back to the base, as I don't want to jump in the end just quite yet. Should also include, for the sake of transparency, that I have also just taken a very quick pit stop to grab a little bit more food. But with our side quest over, let's get back to building. Admittedly means going on another side quest, but as we head back into our entrance fort, we have the mine that we made all the way back in episode number 1. After tunneling left, this is where we came out into the ancient city. But if we take just a few steps back towards the entrance, we actually come across a amethyst geode, which is going to give us all the amethysts that we need, or at least to start with, to build the entranceway. So we're very quickly just going to mine out all of the non-cracked blocks to create a very basic but efficient amethyst farm. There we are, we've got all the budding amethyst blocks all exposed on either side, so they will maximize their growth, but we should have enough for now, so let's head back to our build. As first up, we need to finish the details on both the shields, where I'm going to experiment with some of the purple stained glass that we've had from the previous episode and try and make a sort of textured finish with an amethyst on the end. And clearly I need to work on my MLG bucket skills. And I'm pretty happy with that. I think the fact that we use the stained glass makes it a little bit darker actually helps. I don't really want it to be too bright of a detail so that it stands out too much. And I think that's a really nice finish with the little amethyst on top. And I've now done it to the shield on the right side. Then up at the very top section, we're now going to go ahead and use the amethyst to try and create a sense of gems being mined out and placed as a sort of embezzlement. But what I'm actually doing is I'm actually experimenting here by offsetting some of them to try and add a highlight in the corners to make it seem like the light is just glimmering off the very edge, by putting the amethyst blocks forward and then putting in some stained glass next to it with some blocks behind. That actually looks really nice. I think some magenta glass probably would have helped in there as well, so we might actually go and add in like a block of magenta in. And take it a step back, admittedly, I don't think it has as much of an impact as I thought it would, but we'll leave it at that and we'll move on as we've got a lot more to do. Such as heading back down to grab some more deep slit. I'm actually going to grab some of this andesite as I'm running past as well, because we're going to need a fair bit of this for the last section of the build. Alright, let's jump into a very fast time lapse and finish off the doorway so we can put this section behind us. Alright, now we need to jump on to phase 2 of the video, which is the terraforming of the surrounding area. As I want to start with the pathway, this design that we have over here was only supposed to be temporary until I decided on a more permanent design, which I think, thanks to you guys in the live stream, we have now nailed. So we need to head into the Nether as we are on the hunt to gather some of that good stuff. Run away from the gas, run away from the gas, run away from the gas. Which we have some right near the fortress that we looted earlier on in the video, so we can just go ahead and gather a bunch of basalt for our pathway. We now have an inventory full though, so we can head back through to our base. Let's go ahead and get some of this basalt laid down in the predetermined path that we made. Alright, there's the sort of initial pathway idea down. So let's jump in and get some texturing done to bulk the path out a little bit. And as we jumped into the time lapse, I was really trying to think about how we could tie this into the world. And I actually really like the idea that the dwarves have created an aggregate compound which mixes with cobbled stone and fuses it together in an exothermic reaction, creating a natural stone pathway that the dwarves can walk on. In which it does look a little bit flat right now, but don't worry, it will change. But I am happy with this, but there is a little bit of a detail missing here, which we actually are trying to build a sort of mossy stone outcrop here, which we don't have a lot of moss, so I'm actually turning my attention just up this hill here, where we're going to go ahead and very quickly build a moss farm. But first, as always, we need to decorate the outside and make it a little bit dwarven. But we're going to fly through this, starting by mining out an area in front of the building, which is going to go 5 blocks in either direction, making it look a little something like this. We then need to clean up the outside of snow blocks, and we will do a much better job of this in a future stream or video, but right now, our priority is just getting this finished. I'm then laying down the path, and I want to try and do a little bit of a zigzaggy path up the side of the mountain just to add a little bit of depth. Then grabbing some iron from our iron farm, I want to go ahead and create a bit of an overhang. So I've got an idea which I actually got from a YouTube video. So a big shout out to Yumibo MC, as they actually created a pillar which I think would go really well outside the front here, where we use some anvils into some stone bricks on top to give it a little bit more of a decoration, like so. I'm sort of just getting carried away as well, trying to make a roof, and I'm trying to combine the idea of what I did up here for the entrance as well as what we did for our starter home by adding in some slabs on the bottom, and then we're going to place down a decorative block behind this to add a bit of color and a little bit more depth. Digging into a big cave here was not what I was actually wanting to do, but this actually works out much better than you realize. So let's go ahead and light this all up so we don't have to have a mini mob farm rolling here, then we'll get to work. I don't know what this is going to look like, but I want to experiment using slime as this accent color at the back. I might regret this, as we'll probably need a lot of this slimes for future farms, but we can always replace it, I suppose. Don't know if I'm sold on that. We'll probably change it, but it'll do for now because we just need to move on. Another quick side quest over to our old fortress, as we're going to have to grab the pale moss and some normal moss. As if we place down these moss blocks, we will have to do some terraforming in the future and theme up this area a little bit better, as we can fill this area with moss and make it a unpopulated section of our Dwarven kingdom where we can farm the moss. And I will have to have a think about how we could tie this into the lore. Nothing's popping out right at the moment, but it doesn't mean we can't figure it out in due time. You don't have to have everything figured out right away. You can do it down the line when you may have a random stroke of inspiration, but if something springs to mind, I'm sure I'll update you guys when it happens. I then jumped into gathering the resources to make the 2 moss farms by jumping into the Nether. We need 4 observers, 16 redstone torches. Good job we didn't use all that slime earlier as well, because we actually need slime. 4 pistons, which luckily we have a bunch left over from our dwarven hall that we built. Then we need a bunch of hoppers. And having access to the Nether now means we should be able to make some copper. There we go, making 4 copper balls. Then I believe to finish off the gathering, we just need a little bit of cobblestone, giving us access to dispensers, and we just need to make 2 of those. Alright, that should be everything gathered to build these farms. So let's jump into a time lapse and see if we can whip 2 of these farms up together. And that's the farms done. So in theory, if I hit these 2 levers here, it should turn the farms on, and one should be normal moss and one should be pale moss. So let's just go ahead and give it a try. So there's the normal moss farm working as it should. Now this one should in theory generate pale moss. And then if we stand back, we should now see that we have 2 fully functioning working boss farms, which is going to help make our entire Dwarven Kingdom that little bit better. Alright, we're going to go ahead and leave that farm to run for a bit, but I've grabbed what I can. As step 1, I want to go ahead and put the moss down here, which is what I wanted to do earlier, but we just didn't have the moss to do so. And that might need a little bit of a tweak and some sort of plants just to add a little bit more life to it, but I kind of like that as a mini sort of little mossy outcrop between where the path splits. But now it's time to turn our attention to the area surrounding the entrance once again, as the real reason we needed the moss is to create some cliffs that we can texture. So the idea is to start with some andesite, and then we go from andesite into stone. Then as we get closer to the top of where the ledge will be, we start adding in some cobblestone, which then goes into a little bit of tuff. Then the tuff can go into pale moss, which can then be topped off with some green moss. Being totally honest, I was only intending to just create this top section as an example of what it would look like when we get to the top of a peak. They got a little bit carried away. And taking a step back, it looks pretty damn good, but I think we need to change the shape a little bit. It's a little bit too boxy. It needs rounding off a little bit. It needs making look more like stones rather than just blocks. So a little bit of a ways to go, but you can kind of understand the shading and the sort of texture that we're going for. So now we've just got to refine it and build it up on this side here, as well as try and build it up on this side. And after spending a little bit of time getting carried away, I think we're getting close. I've spent some time sort of rounding off the edges. I think part of the problem here is it's just a bit of an odd design overall. But I've also now started moving on to the base section and adding in a little bit of moss as if it's kind of like growing up the walls a little bit, as I'm really wanting to add a lot of greenery into this Dwarven Kingdom. I don't want it to look too over-industrial. And I know one of my biggest weaknesses in building worlds in Minecraft is I haven't added enough life to the areas. So I'm going to try my best to begin to add in little details here and there, as to showcase the dwarves just kind of living around the area, hanging out, you know, doing their day-to-day duties. But after just widening the road a little bit, then laying down some slabs so we can make the road a little bit more accessible. I think I should also add a little bit of a blend into the path with some stone and moss, just to kind of like break it up a little bit. Near the cliffy areas as well, I want to break up all of the flat by adding in some boulders. I've also added in some mossy stone brick blocks to add sort of some subtle walls to the outer area, just to kind of help distinguish the path from the sort of grassy mossy area. But I really like the way that this has turned out. I think we need to do a little bit more texturing of this section here, but overall I'm pretty damn happy with it. But I'm getting a little bit distracted trading up some paper for emeralds so we can go and buy some more food, as we left it a little bit late and I'm now in panic station. And it feels pretty damn awesome to say that the sun has risen on day 800 in our hardcore world. Just in the nick of time, we can go ahead and buy some more food. And yes, I know I should probably spend a little bit of time working on our food situation, but we'll leave that for the next. But hopping back to our main city area, I'm now going to jump into the final segment, which is finishing this right side. Which, step one, we have to go ahead and plan out the staircase before we can terraform and texture the area. So we're going to dig out some blocks, then we'll have some leveled out areas where we'll just kind of connect the two stairways up with a path. So we'll get some stone brick stairs laid down, and that's already looking pretty damn cool. And it also opens up the avenue to potentially put some buildings offset into the mountain in this level and a little bit further up as well, which will add a little bit more life to the area. But let's go ahead and jump into a time lapse, as first and foremost we need to get rid of all of the snow and dirt from the area. Right, next we just need to quickly relocate the gas. I almost completely forgot to do the stairs in up to the entranceway, so let's very, very quickly throw together some stairs. Well, I tried to do something a little bit basic, and I think I really need to redo the stairs, as my idea was to keep the stairs kind of simple, and I tried to make a dwarven helmet with the sides, and then you've kind of got the nose guard. It was kind of just to accentuate the design on top of the dwarven head. But like I said, we can come back to it in the future once I've had time to kind of reflect and design something when I'm not under a time constraint. But I do have a few little details like that in this build. For example, I have put bricks in this shield but kept it as normal stone in this shield to kind of accentuate the fact that this one is more standalone and it's been built up brick by brick, whereas this one has been a little bit more carved out of the mountains. So I tried to add subtle things in like that to my builds to bring it to the next level, but overall I think this is looking pretty damn good. Our stream project is slowly coming to a close as we get ever so closer to finishing it, and very soon it will link up to this gate. And I do know that in comparison to some other content creators on the platform, this has been a relatively slow start. I mean, we still haven't even got netherite yet, for crying out loud. But if you haven't clicked on already, let me tell you, we are just at the beginning of getting ready to ramp up and scale up this entire project. And now that we have means to travel around this world super efficiently with the elytra, we're going to need a way of keeping up that momentum, so we're going to need to build a little factory that's going to allow us to keep up rocket production. And up to the part of the world where the dwarves are farming sugarcane, we turn our attention to the area where we're going to build the factory. And this is going to be split into two different parts. We're going to have the creeper farms, then we're going to have the actual factory down on the bottom. And yes, it's going to have to be a sizable creeper farm because we're not just going to need the gunpowder for rockets, or TNT production as well, because I don't plan on using dupers in this world. So to get this all started, we jumped into clearing snow. Oh, and I just almost didn't realize that our shovel is literally on 12 durability, so let's go ahead and repair that real quickly. And we do have an armadillo farm in our house, but we're not going to be using it, as we are pretty damn poor in our world for emeralds right now. So I think I'm going to take some of this sugarcane that we've got from our main farm and turn it into paper. We're just going to sell it to our librarians. And I still to this day have no idea where the zombies spawned around here and converted these two, but they're a problem for another day, as we rinse and repeat. And whilst I was in the middle of trading, I actually ended up coming across a guy selling a Power 5 book, which is going to come handy later on in the video, so I went ahead and locked that guy in before jumping back outside to completely clear the last of the snow. And I'm trying not to be over dramatic when I say this, but all snow can just disappear forever. I hate it and I want it gone. Also, let's cut to the future where I probably need thousands of snow blocks for a build and I've just destroyed them all. But hopping inside our sugarcane farm, we have a huge backlog of sugarcane up here, which is good. But this is all going to be delivered through to our factory, so I very, very quickly just need to mine through and see roughly whereabouts it's going to come out. May have brought this out a little bit too early. I may need to take it back and head in that direction a little bit more. And with that now coming through to the area, we can move on to starting to build the creeper farm, as we'll build that first and then kind of build around it with the kind of space in the area we've got to work. Now, the farm that I'm going to be building, there has been a few people that have covered this, but I am using the tutorial by Adil Games, which requires me getting a piglin. So let's go and see if we can grab one. Which, given that we've spawned in a Soul Sand Valley, means we've got a bit of a trek to get back, but we want one that doesn't have a spear in his hand. Or a weapon. I think they all have weapons in their hand. We may need to try and figure out how we're going to fix this. And after looking at the video again, I actually realized that we needed a pigling, not a zombified pigman. So that made life a little bit easier because it means we could just, you know, kite one back to the portal. So now we've just got to make our way through and hopefully not get him killed as we head through the other side. Oh. There we go. Oh, apparently he transformed himself, which kind of makes our life a little bit easier. The stone block wasn't what I wanted you to pick up, dude. I hope that hasn't screwed this over and we have to get another one all the way back here. And with the emeralds that we very luckily got earlier, we actually need to go ahead and grab a couple of books, which is going to be 2 sharpness 4 books, giving us sharpness 5. And apparently I don't have a single looting 3 book, which is fine because back in our house, if we craft the spear along with a grindstone, we can use the enchanting table that we made in our home and hopefully try and get looting 3. There we go. Literally 3rd time's the charm. That was pretty easy, actually. We can then head back down to our library where we can go ahead and throw the book onto the spear. We can also go ahead and grab some materials such as powered rails alongside making 2 more hoppers which can join those. So fingers crossed, back up at the pigman, we just need to throw him the spear and then he picks it up. Nice. Okay, that's definitely made me a little bit happy that he's done that. Then we can go ahead and build the killing chamber. This is basically our version of a trident killer. There we are. There's the killing chamber done. So we can now go ahead and just build the rest of the farm, which first meant gathering a bunch of materials. Then I could finally jump into building the farm, which I wanted to say a huge thank you to Adult Games for the design. That's the build complete, and we actually managed to gain a little bit of gunpowder, almost a stack, just from sort of running around and gathering materials to build it. But if I take a step back, I imagine it's probably not going to be super efficient right now, as there's probably hundreds of caves beneath it where the mobs are just continuously spawning. So it's probably not going to be 100% efficient, but I am going to go ahead and just... Hello. Well, we managed to clean them 2 up. So I think I'm going to spend about half an hour just terraforming this pathway right up until the villager breeder and see just how effective this farm is, as I should be far enough away, I think, for it to work, and we'll see just how effective it is. Jumping out of that time lapse, as you can tell, we now have the elytra, which may come as a surprise, as a second ago, before we made the farm, we didn't have the elytra, as I did indeed kill the ender dragon on a live stream over on Twitch and actually on YouTube. I actually multi-streamed it, so I'm going to hopefully leave the link to the VOD if you want to go and catch the whole thing. But for now, let's jump into a very quick montage of what went down when I killed the ender dragon. Hey, Jerem, thanks so much for the link, for the follow.
Let me try that again. I smell another dwarf joining us.
Alright, chat, see you on the other side. Love and appreciate you all. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you for supporting the journey. Let's go! I'm burning. I'm dying. Game. Hello? Oh, there we are. I was panicking there. I'm terrible with a bow! I need to aim higher. Hey, we got him. We're not going to talk about this, chat. Hey, I got one. Hey, we got it. We got the achievement. I think I'm too close. Hey. Oh, he's coming down for the purge again. This might be it, chat. Alright, chat, this should be it. Oh, never mind. Oh, will you bugger off? Let's go! We did it! We freaking did it! And there we are. We also have the egg. Question is, chat, is how long is it going to take me to get an end city? That's the question. You can't write it. Oh my god, there's a ship as well. The first city we come across it, there's a ship. First one of the world. Hey, is that another... Ooh, we found another end city. And another ship. No way! Hey, we've got a second elytra now, which means we're going to have to get the entrance for the second elytra. And there we are. And I just wanted to very quickly say that I am streaming more over on Twitch. I know a few people have commented that I don't really stream on YouTube much at the moment. That's just because I'm trying to hit Twitch partners. So if you wouldn't mind just heading over to the Twitch link in the description, hopping up to the farm, the question is... Oh, we got 23. We got... Oh, we got a fair bit. Not including the stuff we got before. We got almost another stack. So it's about 2 stacks an hour, give or take, which is not great, but we can improve it over time. As we hop back into building, I'm jumping in now to build what is going to be the loading and unloading station for the sugarcane before it runs into the factory where it will be turned into paper, in which we're going to need to run over to our iron farm. And I actually think we'll probably need to take this out as well into a iron smeltery or an iron forge, where it'll basically forge that into big iron blocks, because we're constantly full on storage over there. I also did get a little bit distracted, but I've just went around and lit up our sugarcane farm, as we had quite a lot of zombies in here, and I think it was reducing the rates of the creeper farms. So I'm just widening the tunnel ever so slightly, which is going to need a little bit of redstone. And thankfully we have some nether quartz, which has saved us a trip to the nether. And with that now done, we should have a cart that goes backwards and forwards. Maybe it won't go backwards and forwards because this isn't powered, because it's... I may have built this wrong. Give me a sec. There we are. Yeah, it does matter. So the torch doesn't go on the back, it goes on the bottom there. So that's what caused that problem. But now if we dig this up, and there it is. So that is now the delivery system working. So in theory, taking a stack of sugarcane and putting it in there should stop the cart and should be filling that minecart chest up with the paper. We just have to finish off now using the rest of the wood that we gathered earlier to make a bunch of chests, as we're going to need a bunch of hoppers so we can link up the chests to the system. Except I've actually gone ahead and not quite hooked them up yet, just because we haven't got the other side built. But I've also realized that upon recreating this, I've also created a little bit of a problem here, so we need to just very quickly rectify this issue. Jumping back over to our house, though, one thing that became a bit of a problem pretty quickly is my inventory management. So I decided to use these shulker shells that we had gained from the end dragon kill to make some shulkers, which we then needed to obviously organize them, ready for sorting everything out in our build. We need to go ahead and carve out a very small area in which we're going to have the cane pressing area, which is going to turn it into the dwarven paper. Now we had the dwarven paper system complete, I needed to build a system that was going to carry it behind the farm, where the paper would then be taken and transported to be used in crafting TNT and the rocket. The reason why will become apparent soon, but I did need to go and mine a bunch of tuff, which we were going to need for the build. So back at the factory, I could get to work in marking out exactly where I want these buildings to be. As one thing I wanted to avoid with this project is making it feel just like one solid building, like the typical factory buildings that you do see in typical hardcore Let's Plays. So I had a pretty cool idea, which, as you can see, we've got layers and layers of buildings, and it's intentional, as I want to try and make this dwarven factory feel as if it's been expanded as the operations have grown and the development of this kingdom has grown. They've added in more buildings to accommodate more and more sulfur production, as well as TNT production, and ultimately rocket production. Because who do you think built Gandalf's rockets in The Lord of the Rings? In which, yes, before you get your knickers in a twist, I know it probably wasn't the dwarfs that did it, but just... let's just pretend it was. It's a random clip of me repairing all my tools after a live stream, just because I can. I have also made a decision after repairing my tools, and we need way more food here, so I'm actually going to go ahead and get a few more villagers in our trading hall, which means we just have to put some stations down, then bring the tracks outside. Then we just need to get the villagers in, get the last guy in place, dig up all the tracks, and after trading some of those dirty vegetables, we should now have access to few golden carrots in our main kingdom area, which is going to save me a lot of time flying all the way back to our other farm over in our fortress. And with the sun rising behind us on a brand new day, yes, the clips are in a slightly out of order sequence just to make things flow a little bit better, but I'm going to jump into a time lapse and finish up building all of the buildings for this entire project because, well, I feel I'm in a bit of a building mood today, admittedly, so I just kind of want to put some music on, maybe put on a show and just get to work on building. Building then grinded to a halt as we faced the hottest heat wave we've ever experienced in the UK, and it became unbearable to work at my PC. And the days came and went when I was unable to really make any progress. Then I jetted off to Tunisia, where I enjoyed a little bit of a getaway to celebrate my 5th wedding anniversary. But with the weather cooling down now and not having any holidays booked in, we can now turn our attention back to building. If any aircon brands wanted to sponsor me, I wouldn't be particularly one to say no. Because seriously, it's expensive. But jokes aside around sponsorships, you guys know that I don't put them in the videos as I like to maintain the story and the narrative, and your experience really does matter to me. That being said, I would like to take a very quick moment to just give a shout out to my own clothing brand that I've now released called Rock and Stone. Because if you do have the means to purchase a piece of merch from the website, you're not only supporting me and my wife, you're also joining a collective of fellow dwarves that are on their own quest to build their own things in life, but it means I can continue to make these videos without having to include any sort of sponsorship, and you get something worthwhile for your buck. But let's jump back into the build. Yeah, I also think what I'm going to do is add a staircase out the back here that goes into a tower behind where the farm is. Just like that. But we have run into a bit of an issue which I didn't think we'd run into, in that we've run out of copper, so we're going to have to go on a bit of a mining spree, and we are 100% going to need to get a bee farm going at some point so we can stop these blocks from oxidizing, in which I totally forgot there was a bunch of copper that we can gather up in one of the areas we were collecting stone for one of the stream projects we did. But with a quick use of our Fortune 3 pickaxe, Jesus, all that from 2 stacks of copper blocks is insane. In which I think it's also time that we actually utilized all of these furnaces and try and get all of this copper done in as short a time as possible so we can jump back to the build. Quickly grab all the smelted copper, and all of that for 2 blocks of cut copper, which doesn't seem like much, but it should help go a long way in this factory build. And I also kind of wanted to, I really wanted to transition this by throwing them at you and saying, Khajiit has wares, if you have coin. But yeah, I've been chronically online too much recently. Anyway, let's jump back to the build, in which I've just heard a massive explosion inside this creeper factory, so I have a feeling we're going to have some repair jobs to do, which I'm going to be honest, I've actually already done one already off camera, so this, I feel, is going to be one of those things which is going to be the thorn in our side, as they say, or the bane of my existence. Or the bane of during, question mark? However, I will leave my comedic genius behind as we now jump into building the walkway out the front of the building. And with the last few bricks, that should be the build just about done. But I will be honest, this farm I don't think is cutting it, and we may have to redesign the farm to a different design in the future, as Well, let me just show you. If we dig in right about here, as you can tell, it's been blown to smithereens by all of the creepers. I'm not really sure where the flaw in the design is. Could probably figure it out with a little bit of time, but we've already spent more than enough time on this, so we'll come back to this. At this point, we have gained quite an amount of gunpowder from this, though, but I think this could be a lot better if it would stop blowing itself up. But with the building done, we can now go ahead and focus on building the factory and interior. So we're jumping into the actual rocket production room where we need to clear out this stone and build a 2-tier system. So we've built a temporary storage area. This is just to fill the room a little bit and to make this bottom section look a little bit more filled. But I have gone ahead and got some spruce shelves so we can actually separate off the room a little bit and hide the track somewhat. Then we need to go ahead and add the paper drop-off system. Remembering this time to actually make it right and not screw it up like we did before. This is then going to lead into the auto-crafting system, which we now need to go ahead and build. Which I want to say thank you to the YouTuber Rexstone for the tutorial on this auto rocket crafter. The only thing about this design is we actually need to make a little bit of a change, as this design works by having a hopper that goes into here, and this will detect if there's sugarcane in here, which then gets crafted into paper, which then creates a backup system so that this doesn't get overly clogged with paper. And then this is the one that outputs the rockets, in which I'm thinking maybe swapping this out for a dropper may do, but we might need to do some experimenting. I needed a little bit more redstone, so I decided to come over to the raid farm that we built, except you guys don't know much about this, so I'm going to roll some footage real quickly of us building a raid farm in the live stream, and then I tore it all down because I didn't want the big ugly build sticking out in the middle of our world. But it does give us the redstone that we've now got in our inventory, which we can use for the... As I decided to change the design a little bit, the other one I couldn't quite figure out because, yeah, I'm not the best with redstone, to be honest. But I did go ahead and redesign it. But I have to thank Viking Pilot TV for this tutorial on TikTok, and this one actually turned out much, much better because it basically acts as a system where we have the two inputs into the rockets. This one can bypass the sugarcane production. Then it activates this clock behind it, and it will then spit out rockets. And the best part is it will only work whilst there's a backlog that is detected within this hopper. The moment that one of these stops getting supplied, it then turns off the whole system. So it's going to prevent it from getting overloaded. So now we can place down the chest for the paper delivery system, and we've already ran into problem number 1, which only required just doubling up a few of the powered rails and just moving it over one block, but this is pretty much all sorted now. So next up in the line of what we need to get done, going to jump into building a 50-50 item splitter by Ilmango, in which this is what it kind of looks like. We've had to do a bit of jiggery-pokery with the design, but essentially the creepers will get killed, the gunpowder then goes straight into these hoppers, and we've kept these chests there just as a backup, just in case all of this kind of gets backlogged for whatever reason, then at least we won't lose out on loads of gunpowder. Then it gets taken all the way across here into the sorting chest. Then what will happen is, as it goes through this system, this is going to be a basic clock that's going to tell the game to split the items individually into these two, and then these are going to flood through here into the two different outputs. So we'll have an equal amount going up to the rocket factory, which will go up to the right, and then off to the left eventually we'll have the system that goes to the TNT side of the factory. And we can test this by putting 64 gunpowder into the system, and then if this works, there theoretically should be 32 in this hopper and 32 in this hopper by the time it's done. So we'll jump forward, where just 20 seconds later the survey says 32 and 32, which means that this does work as the perfect 50-50 splitter, exactly as we were hoping for. We did actually end up having to sort of do a little bit of a rework in the area, but now we can jump into getting the rest of the system set up so that all of this heads up into this section up here. Admittedly, this is a messy looking system and it is very convoluted, and I probably could have done this a little bit better had I spent a little bit more time to think about this, and we probably will refine this in the future. But one thing we need to take a very quick look at is if the actual rocket delivery system, as the rockets will be crafted, sent into here, and the theory is this should then go all the way down to the chest storage room in the main area. And if we head down here, we should see it go up there and bounce back. And it should, in theory, go backwards and forwards, assuming that I've done all this correctly, which I have not. I missed 2 pieces of track. Anyway, just need to head and grab a little bit more wood for some chests. And I said this on my live stream the other day, but I am so happy we've finally got totems in this world, because I can just fly everywhere now without worrying about the Java glitch. To be fair, it has cost me a fair few totems in my previous world. But we move into the point where we should now be able to... these actually need turning around. I've screwed these up a little bit. Anyway, we're about to find out as we are now placing down the gunpowder. As we're placing down the chest for the gunpowder, so this should begin to fill all of this up, and we'll see how that gets on. And whilst that's doing that thing, we just need to head into the Dwarven sugarcane farm and finally hook up these sugarcanes into the machine, and this should begin to start filling up that, and that will hopefully, with a little help of bumping it up and manually putting in some sugarcane, I'm hoping this will fill up and leave. Otherwise, we've kind of got a problem, and we may need to help just kind of speed this up and get it on top so it hasn't got a backlog. But we'll find out in just a second. Yeah, we have a slight problem here, because we have a huge backlog of sugarcane. Actually, it's quite... We're gonna have to manually clear this, I think. And that ended up taking me way too freaking long to sort out. Basically, you need to have it going into a container so it doesn't leave to the hopper too quickly, so that it actually activates this. And I also had to redesign this system as well. But truth be told, I've also neglected the gunpowder situation, and I have no idea what's actually going on, because we seem to have paper just shoved in there. We seem to have no fireworks going on. This seems to be just continuously triggered. I think we've also got the same problem with the actual rocket delivery over here. So let's just go and throw in the other chest real quickly. And ta-da! It was indeed the actual problem. And now we've got fireworks unloading into this storage area. And we're just about to catch when this should send that back. Except that cart's now going to get stuck, because when this fills up, it's still detected items in this hopper, and it's not telling this to kind of just bugger off because it's full. And I'm not really sure how you can fix this. I might have to look up online if that's fixable. So we jump back to the main factory floor, where we went ahead and finished off the storage and added in a little bit more decoration, as I really liked the idea that the dwarves would grab some glass bottles, scoop a little bit of gunpowder up, and prep the bottles to be sent off to the rocket production facility in the factory. I also really like the idea of turning this little corridor that I didn't really know what to do with into a sort of a coal storage shed almost, but for the backlog of gunpowder. So when they get gunpowder shipments, be brought over, kind of poured into this pit here, and this is where the dwarves would then top up their piles in order to continue the rocket production. Moving on to the exterior, I was going to leave this till the very last of the video and kind of do it as a last second detail, but the snow is really starting to tick me off a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and terraform the surrounding area. So heading into my moss farm, I'm going to grab a bunch of moss. We'll definitely need more, but we'll start small and we'll just keep coming back as we need it. This is supposed to represent grass, but the reason why we're using moss is because there is no sort of grass block carpet, whereas we can always use the moss carpet to prevent snow from laying on the top. Then with the moss down, we just go ahead and place down carpets, which admittedly it is a little bit difficult, so I'm going to do this one layer at a time just so I know where we've actually placed down the carpet and where we haven't. I'm also going to go ahead and attempt to keep some sort of mini rocky outcrops in here by just placing down some carpet on top of moss stone brick. Then from the side, you still get that sort of grey stone effect, but it does blend in with the carpet a little bit better along the tops and the bottom. Not to mention just how good that looks, and it really starts to make the factory stand out from its surroundings a little bit more. So we're going to jump into a time lapse and try and get all of this done in the next couple of hours. Well, apart from the snow that's laid again, this is actually starting to turn out to look pretty damn good. But we've just got a few more small jobs to do, in which we are going to have to gather a bunch of wood to do so. As we're going to use the wood that we've gathered to craft a bunch of chests, as we need to go ahead and store some of the sugarcane from the sugarcane farm that we're using to power the rocket factory, simply because I think it's just too overrun and it's causing a severe backlog. But I've headed back over to my starting base as we need to grab some of the pumpkins. So I thought I'd turn my attention to this area that we've literally just dug out and shaped not too long ago, because if we head to the top of the farm and we dig out our central block, as you can tell, this has basically been completely obliterated. All but one layer is remaining and there's 0 snowmen left in this build. So we're going to try and repair it and hope that it works, because if not, we're going to have to tear this whole thing down and rebuild it. But I'm under no impression that this is probably most certainly going to break again, so I'm going to probably do some AFKing of this farm with replay mod running, just to try and figure out what's actually going wrong to see if it's fixable, like everything else that we've built in this episode. But I'm pretty happy with this project. Wait a second. Okay, that needs changing real quickly. There we are, that's fine. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with this, and we're getting it done just 5 Minecraft days before we hit day 1000, so let's pretty much go ahead and AFK, and we can hit that day 1000 together as a community. Decided to, rather than sit around and do nothing, to actually be a little bit more productive and place down a little bit more moss, just to decorate the area a bit more, in which that doesn't look too bad. It's a quick job, but it'll do. So we'll go ahead and sleep this last night away, which I don't typically like to do, but we'll do it in this one instance. Pick up our bed, and that puts us on day 1000 of our new hardcore series. All of our city building progress has been documented so far, but I thought I'd give a very quick tour to the entrance hall that we've been showcasing the progress of in between the episodes. As these upper sections at the base of the columns are yet to have terracotta placed down for the floor, but we haven't found a Badlands biome yet despite looking on stream. We're also going to need a gold farm in order to get the amount of gold needed to line these halls with golden blocks to add a golden decorative element. We've still got moss and some skylights to go into the roof of the hallway. We've got some braziers to put onto the walls. We've got some armor stands to add as decoration. And then last but not least, we just have to build the room and the entranceway into our new city area. That will be done in the next couple of weeks on stream. But with that said, we're heading into the next phase of this world, where we will be focusing on getting ready to dig out the cavern, as well as working on our next big stream project, which we've already planned and discussed, funnily enough, on stream. We also did take a break from this entranceway, and we actually worked on this area, which I didn't showcase in the video, and just used some spruce wood and some basic wool things to kind of add some decoration and some life to this area. And upon working on this, I also realized that I didn't quite like this entrance archway design, and I'm gonna rework this in a live stream at some point. But hopefully by now you understand the scale of this world and the scale of what I want to achieve in this world and this project. So if you haven't already, I'd love it if you would consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, let's confuse the heck out of everybody in the comments. I want you to go down there and leave a comment saying, "Us dwarves are natural sprinters, Mike." But I want to indeed thank each and every single one of you for supporting me on this journey, supporting this video, and supporting the concept and the idea of this world. So far, it has been a blast, and I've loved bringing you guys along on this journey, and we've still got a long way to go. So thank you for watching. I've been the Mike James, aka It Me Mickey T. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye!